Cloud9 advances. NA is safe for now. We got lots to talk about with groups. Finally starting. Groups are in like just a couple of days. Play-ins are done. Play-ins were very good, very quick. Awesome stuff. And then also some groundbreaking news coming out from the BYG mid laner Maoan. We don't know how to say his name, but we know that he's cheating, and this is quite bad. We're going to get into that in just a second. This is episode 60 of the Clown Fiesta podcast with Blue Jay and JNT 250. 250, where are we starting? We're starting with the cheating stuff?
Yeah, I actually, just because I Googled it, I prefer, not that I prefer, but if I ever mess up his name, I'm going to just default to Moana, the Disney movie. That's what I'm going to call him.
Nice.
That's what I've decided.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to get into the play-in stuff and the group stuff, but this is like unbelievable that this happens to, like, I'm not surprised at all that this news breaks, but I am surprised that it breaks during the middle of the tournament and then you have to sub out right before best of 5. The timing couldn't be any more worse for this, can it?
Yeah, it's pretty, like, first of all, the whole situation is just, like, absolutely fucked. First of all, you're leaking strats to your friends, supposedly, for betting purposes, so that their friends can bet on their matches. And it's funny because before all of this news came out, from watching the BYG games, I thought Maoan was their worst player by far. I mean, maybe not, like, by far, but I definitely, like, definitively thought that he was their worst player. I was going to kind of ignore PK's first game when he played their first game of play-ins and looked pretty terrible on the Kennen when he kind of got counterpicked by the J4. But other than that, I mean, I thought Husha was doing a decent job despite not playing very well either. Eno was kind of like getting dragged along by Doggo. But dude, to me, Maoan was looking like Pobelter on CLG, where 1, his laning was terrible. 2, whenever he would make plays around the map, he was always late to the play or making the play at the wrong time. Like the main thing we always talked about with Pobelter on CLG is he would TP top level 3 in order to try to save top lane's lane, which was already fucked, and then he fucked his own lane by having to TP. And pretty much he did that in almost every single play-in game, and I wouldn't be surprised if that guy was sandbagging games as well as leaking strats.
Well, and see, that's the thing, right? Is like, this is fresh news. So for those that are unaware, we're recording this just like an hour or two after play-ins just finished. So Cloud9 just played against Peace. That's when we're recording this. And so the news came out last night. And so there's probably still got to be an investigation or something done to see how far this stuff goes. And you could be right. Let's not say that that is the case because we don't know. But you could be right. Maybe he was sandbagging. Who knows? Because if you're willing to cheat a little bit by leaking strats, and that, apparently that's what was being leaked, right? I just want to get this right. He was leaking pick bans, correct? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just draft strategies from what the initial kind of tweet was, like, rumored.
Right, and I guess the point that I'm making is if you're willing to cheat, how far are you willing to go to keep cheating? And sandbagging is something that I could see in the realm of possibility, although we have no there's nothing that shows any proof of that at the moment. But like I said, this is brand new. I'm sure Riot still has to try to figure out what exactly went down, who was all involved. Maybe there's more than one player. We don't know at this point. And that's what's so crazy about it is, like, if you're Riot, you don't even know what kind of punishment to do because maybe I don't know, like, maybe it's not anything to do with him. Maybe it was someone else on the team. Maybe there's just there's wrong info that got out. But you have to quickly make a decision and say, look, we're banning him for the rest of the tournament. And there's no time for him to appeal or anything like that. There's none of that. There's no process that you could properly go through to figure out who's at fault and what they're at fault for. You just have to quickly make a decision, say, all right, this guy's out and we're rolling with it. Good luck in your best of 5 tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly read out, first of all, the tweets that came out, which kind of broke this news sort of, and it was from one of the people on the PCS broadcast. And basically, they tweeted out saying right after the BO5 between them and Galatasaray yesterday, it basically said Maoan has apparently been leaking pick ban to people for betting. Dinter, which is BYG's boss or presumably CEO, not really specified, turned his stream on earlier to say that he was going to fire Maoan right now. They were not sure what the official ruling was going to be, and that BYG don't have a mid sub for tomorrow's match against Hanwha Life. There was also another tweet saying, there's also a rumor that more than one person on the team was involved with leaking picks, and the staff confiscated everyone's phones to find out. Really heartbreaking if true, especially after their BO5 against Galatasaray. And then,
So I didn't know that last. Oh, there's more. Sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say then maybe a couple hours later, like they released a official ruling, like or competitive ruling, whatever they, basically when they tell you that like a player is getting banned or fined or whatever, and it,
Hmm.
it just reads during the 2021 World Championship, Maoan violated Rule 9.3 of the 2021 World Championship rule set, which prohibits association with gambling. Competitive integrity is the foundation for our sport, and we take all violations of our rule set extremely seriously. The competitive operations team obtained definitive evidence showing Maoan provided inside information to a friend for the purposes of wagering on today's match. He'll be suspended for the remainder of the 2021 World Championship and may be subject to additional penalties following a full investigation. Jeebus.
Right. And so, did I hear you correctly in saying that they think that it's possible that other players were involved as well? Did I hear that
Well,
right?
what it said was the rumor was that other players were involved and the BYG staff confiscated everybody's phones to find out.
Now, when they say other players were involved, they mean specifically for BYG, or they're not clear on that because it could be
Just
you're
BYG,
leaking,
other players
right? It
on
could
the
be
team, it says.
right.
But at the same,
Okay.
but like I said, like that was the rumor. But since there were no other penalties handed out, I think
Right.
as of right now, we can kind of assume that he was the only one involved.
Well, and that's that goes back to what I was saying before is like you don't have time to do a full investigation on this kind of thing and figure out who was involved. So it's possible. I'm not saying that it's likely or anything like that, but I'm saying it is possible that someone else who was involved in this cheating gambling scandal just played a best of 5 today. It's possible,
Yeah, you can't rule it out, basically.
right? And that's whack. But I mean, what do you do if you're right? I don't like yeah, anyways, I don't envy anyone who has to make the competitive ruling on a situation like this or have to make such a quick investigation. It's probably for the best, spoiler alert, that they got knocked out today. So that could you imagine if this team ended up moving on and you still have a cheater playing in the group stage? That would be an even worse nightmare than it already is.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that kind of sucks about this whole thing is I think people really identified even before today like how insanely well Doggo was playing, and to kind of just do this and like ruin this guy's chance at like international success or even like just some international recognition is like pretty fucking terrible. Like you'd have to think with as well as Doggo has played in 2021, with one going on to PSG at MSI as an emergency sub and like absolutely popping off, two finishing second in the PCS, beating PSG in a best of 5. Like this guy's probably going to be like a big ticket free agent for like a lot of PCS teams, could be even PSG Talon, maybe LPL teams. I know a lot of the PCS former LMS players, like those top players, do get. I don't want to say poached because it's not poaching, but they do get offers from the LPL. So for a player on your own team to kind of hurt your own chances to find success elsewhere is just pretty scummy as well.
Well, and it completely overshadows it's completely overshadowed, right, by
Exactly.
this. Now,
Like Doggo
again,
absolutely smurfed their BO5 against Galatasaray, and now
right.
like all we're talking about is this guy.
Well, and here's the thing, and I'm not again, you need to be really careful with this stuff. I'm not saying this is the case, just to be clear, but it's still possible that Doggo was one of the other players involved in it, right? Which if we
He's a
find
good
that out,
boy.
then
He
it's like
wouldn't do it.
then it's like, well, okay, then you shot yourself in the foot. Again, not saying that he did that. My God, got to be careful when talking about the possibilities of things. Yeah. Yeah, it is really unfortunate to your point that a guy who probably was the only good performer on his team. I wasn't really impressed by anyone else on his team.
Yeah, pretty
Is
much.
completely overshadowed by this whole thing. It's absolutely just a mess. And the other thing too is that I am not surprised by this at all. I was trying to ask you last night. I can't remember. I know I've talked about this before. I don't remember if it was on this show or on Hotline League or if it was just chilling in Discord. But I'm not surprised at all that there are people leaking scrims strats because it's just first of all, you've got really young kids that are just well, they're not really mature and they don't really think about what they're doing. Like I don't know how old he is, but there's a possibility that this guy's only like 19 years old. Again, I don't know his age. But if you think about if you look at we'll use some LCS players for example of guys that like are great friends and happen to go to another team. What's an example? You know what I'll use? I'll use Sneaky and Medios as an example because they're no longer playing anymore. But like Do you think that when Meteos left C9 way back in the day to go play for P1, there wasn't times that Sneaky and Meteos still like got together and spoke, and not even to necessarily give away strats, but it could just be you're just shooting the shit and you're talking about a certain interaction from a champion. You're like, oh, how'd you learn that? And oh, I learned it in a scrim against blah blah blah. Like that's not even like you're leaking strats, but it's totally possible that this stuff happens because you're not really thinking about this kind of thing. You're just like so many of these players that play against each other just happen to be friends. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if leaks happen all the time. This might just be the first one that got out, and this one obviously with some serious. The difference between my example and this one is that my example is just like you're not really. There's no like ill intent, whereas this one it was specifically for gambling, which is like clearly for some some benefit to yourself and just terrible ethics. You know what I mean?
He's 18 by the way. I just looked it up.
Right. And so one thing that I remember saying about the last time I spoke about this is like, it is so important that the owners and coaches of their teams have talks with these players of just how much of an impact this kind of stuff can have on their careers. You need to reach out to these players before any of this stuff happens. This is something I remember specifically saying because they don't realize just how much of a mess this can be and how much this can just completely mess up their career. This could be the end for Maoan Mao. I don't know how to say his name. This could be the end of his career. This could be the end of his career. Who knows, right? Maybe not. Maybe who knows? I have no idea. But it definitely it hurts your career for sure, and I have no doubt in saying that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to lose him his spot on this team, and will probably limit his ability to get a spot on another team, whether it's starting in the PCS or whether it's on an academy team or an amateur team or whatever.
You would have to imagine that the suspension will not just be for a 1 best of 5, right? He shouldn't be able to play come January when leagues start up again, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That would be a really small suspension for something so serious. That would be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so that's the official ruling on that, and there's probably still more news to come after Riot does an investigation. Who knows how long that's going to take, but if I'm any owner, GM, coach, whatever, I'm going to my players immediately and just highlighting this kind of thing, just so they have so they can grasp the understanding of just how bad this thing is to do, because you can completely fuck up your career.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on that, or do you want to move on?
Yeah, we can talk about the best of 5s.
Okay, where are we starting?
Well, I mean, pretty big difference in the BO5s today compared to yesterday. Whereas yesterday we had 10 total games, some pretty banger games, some pretty spicy games. Whereas today, I think, other than one game between C9 and Peace, game 1 was pretty cut and dry with what was going on.
Right. Where are we starting though? Are we starting with yesterday's BO5s or today's, or what are we doing here?
We'll quickly talk about yesterday. Like we said, there's not a whole lot to talk about with these BO5s. I mean, none of the teams who were involved advanced. However, we gotta quickly circle back to Doggo real quick and how hard he was just absolutely playing. Like he was trying to hard carry in that BO5 against Galatasaray. BYG complete the reverse sweep. They lose game 1, game 2. Doggo is literally trying to carry his team across the finish line. Maoan's completely sandbagging games 1 through 4, but actually does kind of play well in game 5. And I don't really want to not giving him any props there, but
isn't it so I know we just talked about it, but everything's tainted now.
Yeah,
Whenever
exactly.
we talk about this team, everything is tainted because you're like, well, he had a bad game. And you're like, did he really have a bad game? Huh? And you question everything, and knowing that other players might be involved could completely taint the whole thing. I'll try not to stay too stuck on that, guys. I'm sorry. It's in my head. I can't ignore it. But you're right, though. Most of the team didn't really play all that well. Even though it's funny, though, because even though I wouldn't say that BYG had that great of a series, a lot of people were still saying that this was a 5-0 and they should have won every single game, right?
Yeah, it was funny. A lot of people were tweeting oh my god, first 5-0 we've ever seen at Worlds or something.
Right, and I don't blame them for saying that because they should have won all of their games. Their objective control is quite bad. They're deciding to take fights where they have no need to take a fight. You could just take the dragon, you could start to secure soul, or you could go to Baron and you could actually finish the Baron instead of pulling off. I think it was at 3k health or 2k, I don't remember. but really, really terrible decision making around objectives specifically, and that's why they weren't able to close the series out in a 3-0, and it ended up being a reverse sweep. But yeah, they were clearly the better team, but their mistakes that they did make cost them big, and that's why we had a 5-game series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucked because on the flip side, it felt like Galatasaray, we saw them in the first day of the playing stage, and they actually looked like a really, really solid team. I think we saw a lot of good plays out of both Crazy, their top laner, and Mojito, their jungler. Mojito was pretty, like, exclusively picking, like, the assassin jungles he was playing a ton of Talon, was playing a ton of Xin Zhao as well. Zinzao's not an assassin, but Xin Zhao is just a really strong champ right now. But I thought he was playing pretty well, and they kind of seemed to hit a bit of a wall, and it felt like we saw their ceiling on the first day, and there wasn't much more room for improvement from there.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that stood out yesterday specifically was their bot lane. Galatasaray didn't look too good, but again, we talked about how good Doggo looked. I think there was definitely a gap when it came to the bot lane, specifically because you're against one of the better AD carries in the world right now, people are saying. With how good Doggo's been. So obviously, to me, like, Alive did not look very good. I thought that you could definitely tell he was worse than Doggo, and that bot lane didn't really go well at all. Same thing with Zerg Sting. Not too impressed with those guys, honestly. I wasn't. But like you mentioned, I was actually impressed with Crazy, especially at the start of the tournament. His first game on Kennen, who was that against?
He was playing J4 into PK's Kennen on BYG.
Was he? I thought it was the other way around. Anyways,
was it?
At some point I'm pretty sure Crazy played a Kennen game.
Oh,
I remember
sorry. You were right. He was the one playing Kennen into PK's J4. Sorry.
Okay, I didn't know that it was against PK. Anyways, his Kennen was great. Not only did he just win that lane straight up, but over and over again, he was pulling TPs or like forcing the enemy to TP and getting nothing out of it. He absorbed so much pressure in that game. I was really, really impressed with Crazy. He did fall off a little bit as the tournament went on, but overall, like, I thought this guy was a good top laner at the start. And yes, it was only one game, but at the start, I was like, oh my god, are we going to have another Armut 2.0 here? Like, with the Turkish top laner is popping off, and maybe he gets signed to another team next year. I mean, it's still possible. But I wouldn't say he had as good of a tournament as Armut did last year, but definitely a standout player in the top lane. So I was pretty impressed with him from Galatasaray.
Yeah, the strength of this team was definitely, more the top side of the map than the bot side of the map. It did kind of feel like that their bot side was just a bit of a liability in general. Balulu wasn't really doing a whole lot. I mean, he was pretty much exclusively playing a lot of, like, mages, and an occasional Twisted Fate game. But I thought he actually did a pretty solid job of working with Mojito and Crazy to get that side of the map ahead. But whenever this team was losing, like, they were just hard losing bot, and that was pretty much the reason that they were losing.
Yeah, I think you just made me realize something. I completely forgot about this, but what you just said was he was really good at playing with his top and jungle, and that I completely agree, because they made a lot of plays in the top lane. And of course, you can give a lot of the credit to the jungler in the top lane for that as well, but that's all three of those players that you need to give credit to for that. Specifically in lane, I wasn't too impressed with Balulu. There wasn't really much else that came from lane. But
yeah, I mean, he was just playing mages, like, yeah.
Right. To your point, when working with the jungler and the top laner, he was really, really effective, and so you got to give credit there. But overall, I thought not the greatest tournament for Balulu, to be honest.
Well, I think we'll flip over to our second fiesta, which was Peace versus the Red Cannons. I thought this BO5 was a lot of fun, mainly because I thought Peace was actually, like, doing a lot of creative things in the draft to, like, actually get, like, a lot of advantages. Like, I really loved the Aatrox mid pick in, like, what was it, like, game 3 with the Lilia and the Poppy, because it basically just allows for Aatrox to do whatever he wants, and, like, went ahead. Aatrox is, like, a super, super disgusting champion, and I think Bapip also just did, like, a really good job on Lilia in that game to begin with. I just really loved, like, a lot of the stuff that Peace was doing in the draft, and I think it'll 100% work against, the weaker teams like the Red Cannons, but we kind of saw a little bit later in the C9 series, like, some of those creative picks don't exactly work against the better teams.
Yeah, I always have, like, it's the same thing. We talked about it a little bit during MSI. I just feel bad for the Oceanic region because, and I've said this before, it's that the region is just gutted, and they're just picking up the pieces and trying to rebuild the region after North America has just yoinked all their players, right? And so I feel bad for a region that's like, they weren't the greatest region to begin with. They were just a minor region, and then your whole league folds. It's hard to build up and to stay competitive with the other regions. And that's something that they've maintained the ability to do, even though it's not in every game. I really did not expect them to be able to beat Red in the series. And so I was really, really happy for Peace that, to me, that is a big upset. Because, again, if you lose the majority of the best players in your region, and then you have to go up against the best team in another region, you shouldn't win that. You shouldn't win that at all. And I know a lot of people will point to Red playing really bad, and don't get me wrong, they did. But I think it's something that Osh fans should be really, really happy with, that not only are they able to take games off of teams, but they're able to win a best of 5. That is more than what you should expect out of a region that's clearly struggling just to keep the pieces together.
Yeah, I thought, like you said, it is pretty impressive for a region to, one, get gutted, and then two, go up against top teams from the other regions. Like, for example, like, yes, they obviously got destroyed by Hama Life and LNG in the playing stage, but like,
Right.
the OS #1 team, who's just been 1 year out from being completely gutted, like, beat the best team from the CB LOL and from the LLA, which are two pretty big servers in comparison to them.
Right.
So,
Right.
like you said, like, it is very impressive for kind of like, as you said, like, they got to pick up the pieces and like rebuild, but they're still beating the other minor region teams, which is really good.
Yeah, it's something to be proud of, and I think it's especially what's the word? I don't know what the right word is, but I think Babip should be really happy as well, because this is the guy that just got kicked off of TSM Academy, basically just saying like, "Hey, we don't want you." And then he had a pretty good series. He looked like one of the better players for Peace. And so I think that's kind of what you want if you're Babip. Like, it feels bad to get kicked off of any team, but one way to redeem yourself is to go to Worlds and then start being one of the best players on your team to pick up a series win for your region. So I'm really happy for Babip, and I'm sure he probably feels the same. Um, the only other like performance in this series that stood out to me was the one game that Teton played Ezreal.
Yeah, that was the first game.
He had one int moment where he eat in, and then Babip just immediately Jarvan comboed onto him and punished. Other than that, the rest of the game, this guy was 1v9 on Ezreal, man. Holy crap. He's landing so many Qs, just absolutely hitting every single one. And so I thought that he deserved a shout out for that, even though the rest of his series wasn't that great. I thought that was a 1v9 performance from Teton, and I think he deserved a shout out for that.
Yeah, the main thing, I thought T10 was all right for the most part. I think him and Grevthar were probably like Red Candid's most like important players. Not to say that they were their best players, but I think they're most
They
impactful
subbed out
players.
Grevthar.
Well, the thing, I was actually pretty confused by that, because pretty much in the entirety of the group stage of play-ins, like, he was their best player. He was actually doing the most for their team to like attempt to win. Like, Red Canids put up decent performances against both LNG and Hama Life in the early games, mostly off the back of Grevthar making plays. And then like they put him on this Kled mid pick 2 times. I looked it up. He did play 2 Kled games in the CB LOL, but like, I mean, you ain't doing beat Chief. Like, you're not playing Kled mid out here. And it was just kind of surprising to see them sub him out. I guess it was obvious he wasn't having that great of a series, but like, for the most part, in the previous like 6 other games and play-ins, like, he was their most impactful player. And I mean, I don't think Avenger did much of anything. So
No, he didn't.
it just felt like a weird sub to me that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I feel like if you were gonna sub somebody out, like, it would have been like their top laner or something, because I didn't think their top laner Guigo was very good.
No, he wasn't. And that's the thing, though. That's what I was going to say, is like, even though Avenger didn't look that great, and Grevthar, I can't say his name, but Grevthar, whatever it is, he didn't have that great of a tournament either. Not really anybody did on this team. Like, not anything that stood out to me, anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, it wasn't like Grevthar was like actually smurfing the game, but he was the one actually generating a lot of leads in the early game for Red. Unfortunately, though, despite having early game leads against teams like Hama Life and LNG, like, they just got rolled in the end. So.
Yeah, and then the other player that I thought actually had a good series as well was Tally. I thought that this guy was pretty much just rock in the mid lane. I believe he played some Silas in that one. I think he played Silas.
He had a pretty big Silas game. I think it was game 2. And then he also had some other not so great games. But he's kind of going for like the Dardoch mode, where he's just like picking a bunch of unique champions. So I like it.
Anyway, so then they move on, and then let's get into today's series. We starting with Hanwha?
Yeah, there's honestly not too much to say about the series. It was, the game plan was Hanwha's game plan was let's just kill Doggo repeatedly in every single fight and use every single resource possible to kill him. And if they killed him, they hard won the fight. And there was a couple times in a few games across the series where they would go for these like 3v2 plays on Doggo. BYG would actually outplay it. I think Kino was pretty much doing as much as he could possibly do to try to peel Doggo in a lot of these fights. But when you have 5 champions dogpiling on top of one, it's pretty hard to escape.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you bring up the idea of like, look, let's just shut down Doggo and we're good because one, I think you're right, but I also wonder like, is that because mid and top were just absolutely stomping their lanes the whole series that it's like the only guy you need to shut down is the AD carry because he's
Yeah,
the
I
only one with
mean,
resources,
pretty much.
or is it just because he's the only good player, right? Like
It's a bit of both.
the mid and top gaps were just very apparent in this series.
Yeah.
I wrote down some of the CS leads. Let me find them. Uh, oh yeah, so Leon was playing Kled mid. He had 70 CS at 15 minutes against Chovy, by the way. And if those that most of you probably know, but Chovy is one of the best laners in the game, and he had 150 CS. So he was literally double his CS at the 15-minute mark. So you can have an idea of like you don't need to shut down the Kled. He's already shut down. And then I don't know if I wrote down the other one. Okay, in game one, oh yeah, they had Tryndamere and Gwen, and they were against the Fiora and Aurelia, and both of them were down 10 to 30, or excuse me, 20 to 30 CS, and that was at the 10-minute mark as well. So those are 2 separate games that their solo lanes are just getting absolutely stomped, and that goes back to what you were saying. You just need to shut down Doggo and you're good, and that's pretty much how this series went. That was GG.
Pretty much. Yeah. One thing just to kind of talk about like Chovy's CSing, just to put like something into perspective here. Um, in all of 2021, that's like all of Hanwha's matches in 2021. And I'll reiterate, and we talked about this in our last episode. Like, there were times where Hanwha was like really, really struggling. Like, they were kind of like they were a bit hit or miss in spring. They did make playoffs, although they weren't the best team. It was mainly off the back of Chovy. And in summer, there was a portion where they were pretty much like losing all of their games in the middle of the season. They started out kind of solid. They were losing a ton in the middle, kind of picked it up towards the end. Just throw some stats out here. Despite them playing really terribly, Chovy averaged plus 17 CSD at 15 minutes in the LCK and averaged 10 CS a minute out of
Yeah,
all of
that
his
is
games in
absolutely
2021.
insane.
Like, there's going to be games where you're getting completely shit on, and like in those games, like you might be getting shit on, and like you said, like what guy had 70 CS at 15 minutes? Like, even when like they're absolutely getting shit on, Chovy still averages 10 CS a minute. He's up 17 CS at 15. He's up 600 gold at 15 minutes. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah, yeah, that is insane, especially because their team struggled, like you mentioned, most of the year. So yeah, that gives an idea of just how good of a laner Chovy is, and that's why people go on and on and on about Chovy. It's because he's able to shine when he's on such a bad team. If I'm being
Yeah.
kind of blunt.
But what I actually will say is, in my opinion, it kind of felt like Chovy was like pretty invisible for the majority of the playing tournament. Like, to me, I thought Hanwha's story in the plains was way more about like Willer and Morgan and Deft as opposed to Chovy. Like, if I would have to say something, it would probably be that Chovy was like the least impactful player on Hanwha Life in the playing tournament. Not to say that he was
Interesting.
playing bad. I don't think he was playing bad, but for the majority of his games, like, he was just doing his thing laning, and I think Willer was doing a ton of work on the map, especially in top and bot, getting Morgan ahead. I thought Hanwha Life's biggest struggles were going to be top jungle because, one, it took them a very long time to really figure out their top jungle synergy, and then second of all, it also really took them a long time to kind of get settled into the meta. We only really saw at the end of the split when we were seeing a ton of Camille top lane and Talia jungle out of Morgan and Willer. Like, that was like pretty much the 1-2 punch of Hanwha Life in the gauntlet. Was like Morgan played Camille or Cannon and Willer played Talia, and they would just like absolutely stomp top lane. And it was kind of like the same thing in the playing tournament. Like, I felt Morgan and Willer were doing a really great job. Chovy was kind of off doing his own thing. Enemy teams were sending a ton of resources mid. We even saw that in this series. Like, sure, Chovy was like absolutely stomping lane, but we saw multiple times BYG sending 3-mans at Chovy. He would sometimes die, sometimes survive, still maintain his huge TS lead. And then Deft and Vista were just like doing their own thing bottom, like just playing well. Like,
So it's actually a good point because I do think that Morgan and Willard did actually have really good tournaments, and coming into the tournament, there was a lot of criticism thrown Morgan's way in the top lane, and he did not stand out like people thought he would. I heard many people talk about how this was the weakness of Hanwha Life, but like it didn't really look like it in this so far in play-ins, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean
that
it.
could change,
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of
right?
good top laners. Like I think in
Right.
his group, he's got what like. Well, actually, his group's not that bad. He's got Adam, Hanabi, but he's got Xiaohu, and Xiaohu is probably like the litmus test for Morgan to see how well he's playing.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I guess my point is like the the thing that could have held them back from not moving on from plans would have been the top lane, and that definitely wasn't going to be the case
Yeah,
in this tournament. He looked more than fine up there. So yeah,
yeah, and I mean, I'm still expecting Chovy to play very well. And again, not to say that he was playing bad. I just thought that the success of Hanwha Life in the playing tournament was because of Willer getting Morgan ahead and playing well with the bot lane.
yeah, yeah. Do you want to move on to the Cloud9 series, Cloud9 piece?
Oh yeah, the NA versus OS. It's the new rivalry. Fuck NA versus
Another,
EU. It's NA versus OS.
yeah, another stomp series, but it didn't start that way in game one, man. Okay,
Yeah,
so JT,
they're
do you
running it
remember
down a little bit.
you
We're
can
having some
expose
fun.
so yeah, so can expose what did I say about Peace last night? Do you remember?
I don't even remember.
We talked about them last night. I basically just said like there's no way Cloud9 is ever going to lose this
Oh,
series,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
basically said Peace is absolutely trash tier team in comparison to Cloud9. Um yeah, so I definitely had that thought process coming into today. Game one was close pretty much the whole way through, and I started to question that thought pretty much right off the bat because bot lane died immediately with Nami Lucian, which is supposed to be a broken bot lane. This was a stomp from Cloud9, and that's good and all, but they still show some weaknesses, man, and that is not a good sign at all from Cloud9.
Yeah, the thing that, well, first of all, I think the game plan from Peace was good for the most part. Like, they recognize, hey, we're the underdog team. We're most likely going to get outlaned by all their players. So the best thing that we can do is pick a lane and just repeatedly gank it and say, hey, we're going to win this lane. You need to go win the game through the other lanes. And I think that's exactly what you need to do when you're a super underdog team. Like, I'll jump back quickly to when I was talking about the Red Cannons and how they were playing against Humble Life and LNG. Like, they pretty much implemented the same game plan where, like, hey, we're going to pick a lane, focus this lane down. You guys need to go win the other lanes to win this game. And that's what it felt like from Peace to me. Like, yeah, I think game one was a little bit of like a fiesta because Sven was like kind of just like chain running it down. Like, I think he had like what, 5 deaths in like 12 minutes into the game or something like that, playing the Nami Lucian. But like you also said, like despite Peace basically throwing their entire team bot lane, like Cloud9 was pretty much even the entire game. I think the lowest point they ever dropped in 15 minutes was like not even 1K gold. I think it was like 8 or 900 gold. Was like the low. It was like the highest goal lead for Peace. Maybe it was like just over 1,000, but it was pretty close for the most part. You did see Perks die one time really early, but I think that was more like off the back of a great roam by Aladoric. I kind of thought that he was actually their best player for the most part in the playing stage. It would either have to be him or Babip, I
I would
think.
go with Babip for me.
Yeah, I think it was either him or Babip. And I think you kind of saw like when Peace was actually playing very well, it was more off the back of like their team plays with jungle support rather than like their individual laners like making a nice play. Because I don't think we really
Yeah.
saw too much of that from them. I think we did see that against the weaker teams, but when we did see Peace go up against like the more tough teams, like when they were finding success, it was because they were making intelligent team plays. One thing that I'll have to just reiterate again is, well, I guess I haven't said it now, but I've been saying this basically while watching the games. God, for the love of God, please stop picking Amumu into Leona. That matchup is so horrid. I do not understand why teams continue to pick it. It's just like baffling me.
Well, Amumu looked bad pretty much all of plans,
I
right?
know, and
Regardless
but but
regardless of who he's against.
but it's the same thing.
But
Like they're picking Amumu into Leona, which is a losing matchup, which I don't
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, we saw in one of the games Leona was first picked, eh? That doesn't happen very often, or at least
Yeah,
it never used to. Maybe it does now. What do I know?
Jesus.
Um I actually I feel bad calling this out because I think he's in a tough situation, but I thought Vizicachi had a terrible tournament. I thought he was their worst player for Peace, and like you would think that this veteran coming from Europe would be a huge like improvement to your lineup. And look, I don't want to just completely ignore that there's a lot of synergy issues when joining a new team and whatnot, but this guy just got hard stomped in almost the whole tournament. I thought he was definitely the biggest weakness, and I felt bad again because it's not an easy situation. But this is a guy that's trying to become or go back and play pro next year. This hurts your chances big time. He looked really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest though, like, what else can you really expect? Like, I think, people might like say like, oh well, look at Doggo when he was emergency sub, but like that guy was actually like playing and was on the second best team in his
Right?
region.
Yeah.
Vizicachi
Right.
hasn't played in what, like 2.5 years? Plus he's been, coaching. Like, not to say that, I was expecting something from Vizicachi. I thought he had a couple of like decent games, but would agree with you, like for the most part, this guy was kind of just getting shit on.
I would expect. So again, it's not an easy situation. Like you just mentioned, he hasn't played in quite some time. But I would still expect that a veteran LEC or EULCS, if you want to go back, player would be able to sub into a minor region team, especially one that we mentioned has been gutted as well, and be able to hold his own and at least play to the standards of the rest of his team. And we didn't really see that. So I think that it kind of just hurts his chances of finding a team next year. Although, in all honesty, you'd probably have to join an academy team or a what do they call it? The ERL, the European Regional League
Yeah.
team. In all likeliness, I don't think that he would go right back to the LEC, but who the hell knows?
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like against the weak team, it felt like he played solid, not like great or anything, but against the good teams, he played pretty bad.
Yeah,
And
I thought he got picked on a lot, and it was free kills in the top lane.
yeah,
The other thing I'll say too is that specifically with Cloud9 is I thought Fudge actually had a good play in.
yep.
I think he has been their best player, and it's weird because that is not the first time we've said that this year. How many times have we said that Fudge is Cloud9's best player?
Since MSI, pretty much.
Isn't that insane? Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still so surprised. And for those that are longtime listeners will remember at the start of this year, I was very critical of, I mean, everyone was very critical of Fudge. He was absolutely sprinting it at the start of the year, right? So
I wasn't.
unbelievable the turnaround. He
Yeah,
was bad, dude. He was absolute trash.
no, but I was
Let's
I
be
was
honest.
just saying like we got to trust the process here.
The thing is, I don't think anyone said like you don't have to trust the process, but
Well,
no one would
people
have
were
predicted
saying,
he'd be the best player, dude.
yeah, that's
That's a
true. But
big
I mean,
difference.
people were calling for fucking Darshan to come in. And it's like, okay, like I think we can like ride out Fudge a little bit more before we resort to putting Darshan in.
Yeah.
He's getting fucking gapped by Kato Lee and solo queue, so I don't think we want Darshan. And
People don't know that reference.
okay, Kato Lee is one of our friends, Brendan, and he was like absolutely destroying Darshan the other day in solo queue. So
Yeah,
I don't want him starting top for C9. Thank you very much.
he was streaming it to us in Discord
Yeah.
and we were watching, and he was just shitting on Darshan, and
Yeah.
that wasn't a good showing. It's solo queue, man. Like that
Yeah.
happens to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think the game plan from Peace in terms of just camping bot lane was really good, and I think, we kind of saw that in their drafts. Like they pretty much drafted solely around to attempt to win bot lane. I think Cloud9 did make some pretty bad mistakes into in game one with their draft, like not taking the Xin Zhao after the early MF pick because Xin Zhao was just like a straight hard MF counter. Like that champion almost becomes useless at a certain point into the game if you have Xin Zhao because of the interrupt and because of the ulti damage, like the Xin Zhao ulti to block MF's ult damage. And like I said, like sure, you can die once or twice early on when Peace is throwing all the resources bot lane and you're kind of like just out laning mid and top. But like, dude, Sven was like really chain inting it. Like they had no front line with Lucian and Nami, and you pretty much saw Sven would dash in for some poke, and Peace would just like jump on him, and there was nothing he could do about it. He would insta die. Vulcan would have to burn his flash, and you could really see how terrible Nami looks when she has no flash. And that was like kind of like just like a counter, like a what's the word? It was a byproduct. It was just a byproduct of like having no front line. You just have like this Nami with no flash that is constantly getting picked on. We saw anytime Vulcan walked out of lane to go up to the river, Babbitt was there, playing Zin's out, just would press W, jump on him, flash over top the bubble, and just kill him. And I think we saw in Game 3 they kind of had a much better Lucian Nami comp, and I think they kind of got their legs under them. And you saw like Sven was just like solo diving MF like level 3. One thing that I thought was interesting that I never actually knew about the Lucian Nami, like how the pick works now and why people are running Electrocute, is that you can proc Nami's Electrocute on the empowers from Lucian. So for people that don't know, one of the reasons why like Lucian Nami is a really strong pick right now is they gave Lucian this little mini change where whenever an ally empowers Lucian with like a steroid of some sort, he does an additional point of damage. And one of the reasons why Namis are taking Electrocute is because Electrocute can proc off of the bonus damage from Lucian. So pretty much just you press any button on Nami on the Lucian, he dashes in and it'll proc Electrocute for him. So it's basically like kind of Lucian has like 2 keystones, which is kind of really cool. I didn't actually know that. They said that during the series, and I was like, oh wow, like that makes a lot more sense why people are running Electrocute as opposed to Guardian. But at the same time, when you chain die, the pick looks really bad.
Well, and the other thing too is that Nami and Lucian have always been traditionally 2 very good laners. And so when you have that, and you have this, as someone in the live chat points out, a really cheesy kind of strat, like it's going to be even more busted, right? So it's just they're probably going to need to make some changes to balance that out. But I mean, we're probably going to see it for the rest of the tournament, or we're going to see some bans at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of actually see it the opposite way, where I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of Nami. I think we'll see Lucian, because I think Lucian's a really strong champ. But I just think the really good teams are just going to absolutely abuse a champion like Nami, who is so vulnerable without Flash, is so easy to punish, even with Flash, if you have your own
Very
Flash.
possible.
Similar to like a Mumu, the champ just seems really one-dimensional and really easy to predict what he's doing, and does get hard countered by a lot of champions. So, like, I think a Mumu is just bad in general. So I don't think we're going to see that champion at all. I'd be really surprised to see any of the good teams actually pick the champ. The only matchup I think Amumu is good into is Rakan, because similar to how Leona versus Rakan works, where Rakan ever jumps in, you can instantly lock down CC him. Amumu kind of works in the same fashion, where you just ulti whenever he W's in, and then double Q him, and he'll just always insta-die. And any other matchup pretty much seems terrible. And I think, with Nami, like, there are so many like good supports in group stage, and if any of these like, lower tier teams, like any NA team or any wildcard team, like locks in like Nami into like a good player, like they're just going to pick Nautilus, they're going to pick Alistar, they're going to pick Leona, and they're just going to run you over.
Nami is very high risk because she's susceptible to getting picked off. So that is definitely true.
Yeah, Lucian Braum. Dude, like I would much rather see people play Lucian Braum than Lucian Nami right now.
We'll have to see how that stuff pans out. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about C9 in a little bit, but I think we should probably get to DFM and LNG, right, in plans?
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about them. DFM, I mean, as a Cloud9 guy, like if you're cheering, any North American fan is going to feel pretty bad about seeing DFM beat Cloud9 to take the #1 seed. But I mean, hey, this is like this is honestly huge for the LJL, right? Like for the Japanese league, this is a huge milestone, if you will. I don't know what the right term is.
Milestone.
Unreal for them to be able to take a spot and play to take the first spot from play-ins in their group. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I think most people had it either between BYG or Cloud9. But DFM showing up when it matters, right?
Yeah, I think, they first made Worlds in 2018. They didn't advance in play-ins. They made Worlds in 2019, didn't advance in play-ins. They actually didn't make Worlds in 2020 because they lost in the finals to V3, I think it was. And they've also made MSI, I think, in 2021 and 2019, and they couldn't advance out of that. So, like, this is pretty much the first time they've actually advanced out of the play-in stage, whether it be at Worlds at MSI. And you've always been able to tell, like, feels like whenever DFM is winning a game, you'll always see a reaction from their coaches and like how emotional they are and like how much it means to them. And it is like a pretty good, like, it's like a feels good moment for like the whole region, because a lot of people have recognized that Detonation Focus Me is the best team in that region and has been for quite a long time. But, the region overall is just so weak that it's hard to, get good and get that great practice. And I mean, you see them come into the tournament and they basically smash their way through Group B, only dropping the one game to Cloud9 early on, which was C9, which was both teams' first game. And I think, if we want to talk about that game just very quickly, and why it was just like why the 2 games between C9 and DFM were so different, is it just feels like Evi like completely He's like the motor that makes this team work. Like when you get this guy on a good proactive champion like Set, like an Urgot, those are pretty much his two best champions in all of playing stage. Like he might not like destroy his opponent in lane, but like he has just so much impact in team fights. He's always finding insane angles on like what the Set are. He's always finding great, flash E's with Urgot. Like I think the best play of play-ins to me was that flash E from Evi in that like bot lane fight where he like predicted the enemy's flash with his own flash E. Like that was just like so insane. It's like when you predict Gragas flash E with like you're gonna predict that someone else is gonna flash and you Gragas flash E and pick the spot that you think they're gonna flash you, like some insane shit like that.
So I think Evi had a really good tournament, and I think he had multiple plays where he TP'd down as the Urgot to get a couple of kills in multiple games. And so he had a huge effect. And I do want to go back to the first game, how you mentioned like why the games look so different. Game 1 of Cloud9 versus DFM is when Cloud9 was at their best, right? Like that was like a really good start to the tournament. I thought Cloud9 looked so good. I was like, wow, maybe this month and a half that they had off helped things turn around. And they just played through top lane. And so Evi had the Gnar. He blind picked the Gnar. But unfortunately, that came with Fudge picking the Aurelia into it. And that, for those that don't know, that is a really, really tough matchup for Evi. And, well, like you said, he might be the motor that makes this team work. And when you shut him down, which you can definitely do if you're Fudge on Aurelia, that could be the reason why we saw the games look so different and why DFM just got absolutely clapped in that game. Towards the end, we saw Cloud9 start to make the same mistakes that we've seen them make in the past. Blabber trying to take fights that he has no business taking. Perks overextending in a side lane using his full LeBlanc combo to clear the wave and then just getting picked off. Things like that is why we saw so night and day games out of those two. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Evi because I thought he was the biggest surprise out of DFM, and I thought he was just absolutely insane the amount of pressure that he could have on the map.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh well, I was just gonna circle back a little bit to like the matches what Cloud9 was losing. I think, you look at their match against the Unicorns of Love, you were kind of talking about it, like Blabber taking fights he's not supposed to, Perks using his combo in side lanes. Like, to me, the Unicorns of Love game is the one that you as a Cloud9 fan, I think you should be less worried about than the DFM game. The way I see the UOL game, it was kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. Like, now we're just making too many small mistakes, similar to what they were doing in summer, where, sure, they would kind of make some good plays, and then they would make all these mistakes in terms of their setup, in terms of their laning, and the enemy team would correctly punish that. And I think that's more good by Unicorns of Love than bad by C9. Yeah, sure, it is bad by C9, but like the enemy team has got to be, there proactively punishing your plays. The DFM game was what gave cause for concern for Cloud9 going into their BO5 stage. Like, this was a game where Cloud9 had a huge lead, maybe not even a huge lead, but just had a very, solid lead, and, they're taking fights they're not supposed to. Perks is getting caught early and often. Sven and Vulcan are making bad engages. We see Sven getting caught mid lane yet again. And then, I think Blabber was like the only one really playing well in that game. And you can kind of see like Olaf at a certain point just kind of fell off of a cliff. The main fight that everyone was talking about was when Cloud9 were on Soul Point. The Drake was spawning in like 15 seconds. They decide to like Vulcan and Blabber decide to like 2v5 flash into the enemy team to make, this play, which it was clear like they were just reaching for. Like, I've always said this about Cloud9, they're just like always so horny to fight for like no reason. Even in the Unicorns of Love game, they took like a bad Rift Herald fight. Also in this game, took a bad Rift Herald fight. Like, it's just, and they picked a Mumu, and God, that champ's terrible into Leona. I'll say it again.
Yeah. Anything else on DFM? I want to talk about LNG before we move on.
Yeah, we can go to LNG now.
Yeah, so I don't think there was a lot of surprises that LNG won this group. I think they were the easy favorite. Is that fair to say? For me, they were far and away better than HLE. That was my expectation, anyways, was that they'd be far and away better than Hanwha Life. And, I mean, we kind of saw that. Ale had a great play-in, really good start to the tournament for him. Honestly, they looked pretty good from top to bottom now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I thought was interesting from LNG just was it felt like, going into the tournament, everyone was like, oh, it's going to be the Tarzan show. And everyone knew like Ale was like the right-hand man, but it kind of felt like it was the opposite. Like Ale was just like doing all the hard carrying. Tarzan was kind of just like following him and Icon around while like they were making insane plays. I was pretty impressed with Icon for the most part. Like, He does. I don't want to say he is like Doinby, but his play style feels kind of Doinby-esque, where he's playing unconventional stuff. He's playing more for the team rather than himself. He's not hyper focused on laning like a lot of LPL and LCK mid laners are. And again, like I'm not trying to compare him to Doinby, but like I feel like that's the kind of a comparison that like talks about my point a little bit, because it does feel like he's more team centric than lane centric. And when a player is able to do that while staying, even in CS in their lane, like it's always very impressive, because it's pretty difficult, to constantly find those amazing roam timings where you can run top or you can run bot, and just, make plays while still having control of your own lane.
Yeah, I know we always compare to Doinby, but I think he's the perfect example when you're trying to explain that kind of play style, because he's the one that has pretty much made it a staple, right? He's the one that's pretty much made that play style work. So, I mean, yeah, you say like, I don't know, like I don't think there's anything wrong with you comparing it to Doinby. That's just the kind of the style that you get. I do agree with you that most people expected this to be about Tarzan coming in, and even though I thought that he still had a good tournament so far, yeah, it really was like a team effort kind of thing, which is kind of cliche. I will say that I wasn't too impressed with Light, the bot laner. I do expect to see a little bit more of him, but I haven't watched a lot of LPL this year, so I don't know if we should be expecting more out of him. But altogether, like this team just was clearly the best in their group, and so I'm not really surprised at all
Yeah, like
to see them come out on top.
the only important game for them was their matchup against Humble Life, and in that game, like it was really just Icon and Iwandi, basically just controlling the game up to a point where Ale was able to carry on Jax. I think. Well,
Ale?
Ale, whatever they call him.
I don't know. It might be Ale.
Dude,
I
people
don't
say
know,
Ale,
man.
people say Ale. Like I don't know, man. Like the LPL casters say Ale, and then everyone else says Ale. It's like
And
whatever.
then there's like, then I've heard Galatasaray, Galatasaray, Galatasaray this weekend.
Yeah.
This is like, that's the hardest thing about planes, man, is learning all the damn names that everyone is saying differently. That is the hardest thing. Anyways, Ale, Ale, whatever you want to call him, absolutely stomped in game one, and that's where I was kind of worried about Hanwha Life. I was like, like. I mean, I definitely thought that LNG was going to be the better team, but I didn't think that they would get kind of stomped like that.
I don't know if I don't know. I wouldn't say they got
He's playing
stomped.
Jax, right?
Yeah,
I'm
well,
pretty sure that was his Jax game.
yeah. I mean,
He was kind of popping off on the Jax.
well, he popped off late game once they were kind of in a point where like they were just controlled Humble Life's early game. Like I think, basically LNG just hard comped around Tryndamere Irelia by picking Jax, by picking Gragas mid, and by picking Rakan. And I think Humble Life was doing as good of a job as they could with trying to get Morgan ahead as Irelia. There were a couple times where like they were actually making some good plays top lane, kind of slowing down the Jax, but like it just reached critical mass where you had this Gragas who has his E on like 4-second cooldown. You have Rakan who can just peel for days, and you have this Jax, just like basically jumping into the backline and 1v9ing past like 25 minutes. And you kind of saw that like it was a pretty even game up to about 20-25 minutes. You reach critical mass, and then the game just ended like 10 minutes later.
Yeah. Shout out to Lamau LP in the chat, giving us the Ale. Am I saying that right? I think I'm saying that
I mean,
right.
if that's the correct pronunciation, like sure, but people are still probably gonna say Ale on the broadcast or whatever. So.
Yep, and again, they're gonna say Galatasaray, Rai, and Ray. So
well, they're out, so not
we're
really.
stuck with that. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. One other thing that I wanted to ask, because there has been some discussion about this, so I did want to get back to Cloud9, like I mentioned before. Is Cloud9 and DFM a rivalry, J&T? Because Cloud9 certainly doesn't want it to be that way. But I don't think they really have a choice in the matter if you keep winning and losing. So what do you think?
Yeah, because what their like all-time record against each other now is I think 4-2. Because they played twice at Worlds Plains 2018, where C9 2-0'd them, and then they played at MSI 2021 where they went 1-1, and then they played 2 times now where they went 1-1 again. I would probably say it's a rivalry. It's definitely like a more obscure rivalry because these teams have played each other 6 times in a total of 3 years. Whereas,
well, that's the thing, right? It's like it's hard to have a rivalry with a team you don't play very often, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like I don't know. It does feel like though from now on, like it is like a bit of a rivalry. If they ever,
It's about
if
as
they ever,
close as you can get, right? Like, if it's not a rivalry, which I'm not saying it is or isn't, but if it's not, I don't think you can get any much closer to it without being a rivalry. Like, I think it was Sven that was saying, like, he doesn't think that they're a rival and that they should just absolutely beat them. And, well, you did one game, but you didn't in the other. So,
I mean, it's also hard to say. Like, it's like, I don't know. While DFM did finish first in the group, like, it's more like Cloud9 kind of like lost it themselves and DFM won it, in my opinion. Like, they got stomped in the first
eh.
game, and like C9 just played like absolute trash in the second game. And I mean, you do have to, like, you
So
got to give
I'm
credit
gonna
where credit's due to DFM in that second game, but at the same time, like, C9 should win that game 9 out of 10 times, and they lost it the one time. You know what I mean?
So here's why I disagree, because like I mentioned before, we've seen C9 make some of these same mistakes over and over and over again. If it was like a one-off, like let's say Cloud9's been playing great all year and then they had a one-off game and that happens, sure, I could be like, oh, Cloud9 just lost that one. But like I mentioned, these are some of the same mistakes we've seen so many freaking times. You remember in the series Cloud9 against 100 Thieves, how Closer got many kicks off on Sven, like Sven getting picked. That same kind of play happened. You have to flash before Lee Sin gets his kick flash combo off. You know he's going to do it. Perks in the side lane using his full LeBlanc combo on the wave against, I think it was a Camille. You know Camille's going to be split pushing. That's what she does. You know that Camille's going to be there, and then he ends up dying. Blabber taking fights he has no business taking. Like, this is just stuff that we've seen so many times that it's like, I don't know if this is Cloud9 playing bad or if this is Cloud9 playing the way they've been playing all summer long. Like, they're just maybe not that good of a team. And so I struggle with this because Cloud9 came out of the gates looking so good, and I was like, yes, maybe that month and a half or whatever it's been that they've been off, they've been able to fix all this stuff. And then they just come out and lay an egg on the last day, man, where it's like, nope, right back to the drawing board. They're making these same mistakes. I don't know what to think about this team. I'm so stuck, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Like I said, I think if you're a C9 fan, you're more concerned about that second DFM game than the one against UOL, in my opinion. Well, yes, it is. It's not always the best to see mistakes that have previously happened. But on the flip side, like, what, they played 8 games total, and in 5 of them, they like absolutely shit on their opponents. It's like, I feel like my C9 stock didn't really like drop or like raise. It's still like, I'm still like to be determined, because they really need like the true test against your damn ones and the rogues and their FPXs to see where they're at. Because I feel like we didn't really get like a solid look at C9, because when they were winning, they were just like hard winning, and the games that they kind of got behind in, they did sort of seem to struggle.
Yeah, it's actually a good point. Remind people, J&T, of your tweet at the start, because I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah,
your tweet after day one.
Yeah, okay. So after day one, or no, it wasn't after day one. It was after day two, because they only played one game on day one. They played 2 games on day 2, and they went 3-0. And I tweeted out. Wait, let me just find it so I have the.
I thought it was after day one. Yeah,
No,
find the word.
I said, I wonder how hard the C9 narrative is going to flip about them not getting first in their group after their first 3 games. And then after they lost, I just replied with XD after they lost to DFM and UOL.
But the thing is, though, I thought you were right on. I was like, you know what? My perception of Cloud9 is changing. They looked good, man. Like, their first game against DFM, it wasn't like anyone had to completely stomp. They knew that the way to win was to play around top, because you got the counter pick. Fudge builds up the wave, you dive top, and you snowball through top. Perks would roam. Blabber would obviously make his way up there, and they just knew where to play around. They won the game clean. So I'm like, okay, this is good. We're starting to look good. And then I'm not going to go through the spiel again, but I just went through all the mistakes that we've seen them make before. And then that just completely deflated all the confidence that I had in Cloud9 again. And so your tweets are just like bang on my thought process.
Yeah.
Like, I was right there with you. The XD, that is just too funny, man. That is way too funny. They actually just came right back down to earth immediately. But anyways, that was really funny. I thought we should highlight the funny tweet there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done blabbering. That's going on about Cloud9. Do you have anything else about whether it be DFM, LNG, or Cloud9, or anything like that?
Well, just since you said Blabber, I think along with Fudge, I think Blabber was probably their best other player in the playing stage. I think apart from the one Zinzao game against the Unicorns of Love, he pretty much destroyed or like played really well in every other game in my opinion. He was doing his job and a whole ton more whenever he wasn't playing Olaf. And then when he was playing Olaf, he was hard stomping the game. And kind of like I said before, like in their second game against DFM where he was playing Olaf, they just reached a point where the rest of C9 was too behind, and Blabber wasn't able to, really carry the game on Olaf.
Did he play Olaf against UOL or no?
No, he played Zinzao. That was the one bad game that he had.
Because I remember there was one time where they were like Omega split up, and he's playing Olaf and trying to start a fight mid. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Is that against? I don't remember if it was against UOL or DFM. It was one of their losses.
Yeah, he played Olaf against DFM, but he played Zinzao against UOL, and that was what I would say was Blabber's worst game, because we did talk about like he was taking fights in his jungle when he didn't have any teammates around. But
specifically the one in the mid lane though, where he's mid and like his teammates are nowhere to be able to follow.
Yeah, no, that was the fight. That was the fight where Vulcan started off by like flash queuing on Amumu, and then Blabber flashed after him to try to solo kill the support Leona, while the rest of the 4 members on DFM killed all of C9. Because Vulcan Vulcan overextended, flashed into the enemy team, insta died while no one else on C9 was there. And then Blabber was like, well, fuck this. Let me just go flash on the enemy support and go kill him while my whole other team gets wiped.
Yeah.
Like that was where they lost the game against DFM, but I would say that's way more of a Vulcan bad play than a Blabber bad play.
And you're making me realize that we haven't really talked about Vulcan, and I thought he looked really, really bad on Amumu. Oh my god.
That champ's horrible. I don't think I have no opinions.
I don't think the champion's horrible, man. I really don't. I think it's being played really, really poorly.
I think you can only pick it into Rakan. That's my thing. You can only pick it into that champ. It's the only case scenario.
Is, the mistakes that I've seen from Vulcan's Amumu, or even Kino's, Kino was absolutely doggy on that too. The mistakes that I've seen on Amumu have nothing to do with I didn't mean to do that.
Sure.
The mistakes that I've seen from Amumu have been not like, oh, it's bad into this matchup. That's bad into any matchup, the mistakes that they're making. So I honestly just don't think the champion's being played to its full potential at the moment.
Champ sucks.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. Okay. Anything about the eliminated teams? Any standout players or anything like that? Worst or best team that made it out of groups? Any thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Well, I feel like I kind of talked about it a little bit, but the main 2 guys that I thought were pretty decent was Aladork from Peace. I thought he was actually pretty. I mean, I feel like all the players that I wanted to talk about here, we already talked about and kind of gave them props. Like I thought Crazy was pretty good for the most part, especially at the beginning. He was like doing really well. I thought Aladork was, one of Peace's best players. Him and Babip working together, making a lot of team plays. And I thought Grevthar was really doing a lot for Red before he ended up getting subbed out. Again, more like they were the best individual players, because it's hard to be the best individual player when you're on a terrible team or a minor region team. But they were doing a lot for their team, and I thought those 3 players were for the eliminated teams, the ones that I thought were having a lot of good games and a lot of good impact moments.
Yeah, so I had the 3 players that I had stand out in a good way were Doggo, Crazy, and Ale. We talked about them plenty. The 2 bad ones for me that I thought looked really, really bad were Bugax and Cody. Yeah. 2 players
Infinity from Infinity was the worst team by far.
That's where I was going next. I think they were definitely the worst team in this tournament. Bugax on Jace I think that might have been against Ale. It was against a Wukong. Was it Ale's Wukong? I think it was.
Yeah.
Which makes it a little bit better, because Ale was probably the best top laner, maybe one of the best top laners, we'll say, in the play-ins. So that makes it a little bit better. But I mean, it doesn't matter. Bugax is just hard trolling, man. Taking trades he has no business taking, just straight up dying, running it down. Cody was kind of the same.
Yeah. Ignore his 13 kill Gnar game or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean, that doesn't really count. Like, he played like shit.
Yeah. So the thing with Cody too, he was playing the LeBlanc into the Lissandra. Wait, let me get that right. Did I get that right? Yeah, he was playing LeBlanc into Lissandra, and a lot of people will say that Lissandra is the counter to LeBlanc, because when she uses her combo in, you could freeze her. That doesn't necessarily happen in laning phase, though. The counter is not a laning phase counter like a lot of people think it is. We saw that matchup played a lot in the LCS this year. the LeBlanc comes out of lane with an advantage, but later on, it's less of a target for LeBlanc to be able to use. That's why it's a good counter, is when LeBlanc comes in, you could chain CC her and just kill her in late game team fights. But in lane, you should win that. And he got absolutely stomped on it, and I was like, wow. I was so convinced that this matchup was so heavily LeBlanc favored in lane, and now I had to question it. And Cody's the first player that I've seen get hard gapped on it like that. He had a pretty rough tournament. That was the one standout game to me, though.
Yeah, it felt like, throw it back to MSI, like he was the only player on his team playing well at MSI. Like he had some alright performances. I remember on like Zoe and Silas. And then this time around, it just felt like that whole team was not very good. I mean, I think, them being Infinity and like Unicorns of Love were in the running for like the two worst teams. But dude, I think if you put Unicorns of Love in the other group, I think they probably are better than they're better than Infinity and they're better than Red, the Red Canids.
Maybe. I don't know. The thing is, I think this was in the comments section last week. Someone was mentioning how UOL is like not that bad or something like that. I don't know if I can say that because I actually do think they're that bad.
I think their bot lane is that bad.
It's hard to say because of the group that they were put in. Like there was like decent teams in all of Group B for playing, so it's like, maybe you're right. Like if they were put in the other group, they pick up more wins. Some of the things that I've heard about UOL is like, well, they've looked good in past worlds in play-ins, and while that's true, I think with a more bit of recency, like MSI, we saw them really perform really poorly at MSI, and again, not so great this year at play-ins. So it's still a small sample size, and I would be willing to say that maybe they're better than what we've seen, but so far, I still think that they're a pretty bottom-tier team as far as all the play-in teams go.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely were on the lower end for sure. Like, I'm not saying like that they would have done much better in Group A, but I definitely think they would have been better than the two weakest teams in that group, and could be like a toss-up against Peace or something.
We've seen better things out of No Man's and Ananasic in the past than we saw this tournament.
Yeah, so. Ananasic, he seems to have fallen off a little bit in terms of all like the hype that he got.
Yeah.
But I mean, for UOL, to me, like it feels like their solo laners are like the only decent players that are on there, at least compared to international level competition, and that includes like the #1 seeds from all the minor regions. Like Ananasic and their bot lane were getting shit on, man. Like Boss and No Man's were like the only ones like holding their own.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I really do feel bad for the UOL fans. I don't really have much more to say on it. They didn't look good. It's not what you want out of your team.
I mean, they'll be back.
Not the kind of performance you want out of your team.
They'll be back. They're the best team in that region, and they're the most popular team in that region. And it's probably, be surprising, I guess, to see them not make the next international event, because then that would mean they really fell off.
I would imagine that there's probably a fair bit of European fans that cheer for them as well, because they used to be a European EULCS team, rather. So, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that were pretty disappointed with their performance, but such is life. Let's do Popoff Beansoup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I starting or you starting?
You can start.
Okay, yeah, guys, Popoff Beansoup is back. It's been a while. I had to give my Popoff to Doggo. I feel really bad for the guy. We mentioned at the start of the show that his great performance is just going to be overshadowed by this whole little scandal with I'm not even going to try to say his name, but the mid laner for BYG, who
Moana.
Well, I mean, yeah, Moana, even though that's not how you say that. It just sucks. I feel bad for the guy. He had a great tournament. Great. And to me, he deserved to move on. But the team didn't. And so he's going to be stuck not moving on because of subpar performances out of his 4 teammates. I feel like he was really trying to 1v9 the tournament. And I mean, it just sucks for him. He had a great Draven game. He played good on Ezreal. He even had some good misfortune. And not much else to say. He was popping off, so Popoff goes to him.
Yeah, I gave 2 Popoffs because I wanted to. I don't care. Fuck the system.
Sure.
First one, I'm with you, Dupont, because that guy was like actually just like hard popping off. He had like the best KDA in the whole playing stage. I know it's not like a whole lot to like be wowed at, but like it's pretty impressive. I mean, I thought he played really well, even in the DFM losses early on. I thought he was still playing really well. The only like game you could point to would be that game against C9 where he's playing like Jhin Alistar into like some like full dive comp, which was like pretty hard. But like, I mean, he managed to do a good job, I think, for the most part. Like, he's like old reliable for DFM. I was pretty impressed by him. Like kind of like I said before, like Evi is the motor for this team, but like there's got to be somebody who's following up on all the OP Evi plays, and like Udupon is just like absolutely like blasting people. And
Yeah,
I
so
thought he
you
played really
mentioned
well. I thought he played really well in lane as well. He's like what I would wish Sven could be in terms of like playing safe in lane and not dying
ooh,
like everywhere, because Unipon just like doesn't die. He's actually like
this is
really
a
smart.
pop-off award, JNT. You're not supposed to flame. I'm just kidding. No, to your point about the KDA thing. So I think KDA is either overrated or underrated, depending on the person it's coming from. So many people would be like, "This guy's got the best KDA," and it's like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Or people would be like, "Oh, KDA means nothing." To me, it's like if you have the best KDA in all of the tournaments so far, what that tells me is that doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player, but it means you can't be playing bad and also have the best KDA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I kind of use it as the extremes. If you have the best KDA in the tournament, there's no way you're playing bad. That doesn't necessarily mean you're playing the best, but it's got to say something, even though it doesn't say everything. So that's kind of the way I look at KDA. So
Yep.
I didn't know that he had the best KDA, and so I think, like I said, I think it does mean something.
Yep. I think he's just like pretty solid. I think their support gang or whatever I think his name is. He also does a pretty good job of just reaching a certain point in bot lane where they basically just try not to fight, and then Udupon's in a position, whether he's playing like Misfortune or whether he's playing Ezreal, like he can 1v2 the lane, and then gang just leaves and never comes back. And then Udupon's just like, okay, I will just farm until team fights, and then when team fights come around, I'm not going to make any mistakes and just like absolutely butt blast everyone.
Did you say what his KDA was? Do you know?
I
What
don't
it
know.
was?
At one point, I think the highest it reached was like 32, and I think it ended up at like 20 something.
I mean, that's pretty good. Short sample size, yes,
And
and
the
that's why
next
we
the
don't
next
get
the next
we don't get
best were
too
like
excited.
the next
But
best were all like the LNG players. So it's like
yeah,
like
right.
it's got to count for something. Like you said, like it's either overrated or underrated. But like when you have a better KD than all the LNG players, like you're doing something right.
Yeah, and I think the point is it doesn't mean everything, but it does mean something.
Yeah.
Anyways, what
My
was your
other
other pop off?
I gave it to Willer. Talked about it a little bit. But the main concern of Humble Life coming into the tournament was top jungle. I think more jungle than top. And people could argue either way, but for me, it was more jungle than top lane because I thought Morgan was really like hard smurfing like the regional gauntlet in the LCK. But Willer was like kind of a bit of a question mark, and I thought he just played really, really well.
Pog. I thought he played well as well. I don't have anything to add to that. Beansoup. I had to go with Cloud9's game against UOL because one, I just mentioned how I don't think UOL is that great of a team. And I have also mentioned that Cloud9 was looking really good at the start of the tournament. And you need to freaking win that game, man. That is disappointing. All of the NA fans, you know that they're all disappointed with that. That is Beansoup as fuck, man. You win that game. You need to win that game.
Yeah.
That was like it just you could start to feel it when they lost to UOL. All the NA fans are going, "Oh no,
Everyone
man.
started
You just
sweating.
knew, dude." Especially after it had already come out that Sven was like, "I don't think we're a rival with DFM, and we should just beat them." And I'm like, "Oh Jesus, man." Yeah.
Yep, I already said this like 5 times this episode, but I'll say it again. Mumu into Leona absolutely sucks balls. Stop picking it. I think it's what did I
Okay.
have? It's wait, I wrote the stat down somewhere. Where did it go? Mumu's 1-6 into Leona. 1 win, 6 losses, and the one win was I think it was like Humble Life beating like a bad team. So like it's 0-6.
The thing is, sometimes you with a pick like a Mumu, especially like that's a really big team fight ultimate that you get with a Mumu. So I would say that sometimes you're willing to take the losing lane for the winning team fight later. And
But you don't
I
win the
didn't
team
go
fights.
I didn't look at all of the drafts specifically to see how it goes later on. I still don't think we can give up on the Amumu pick yet. I highly doubt it would be as picked as much as it is if it was in fact as bad as we've seen. So maybe it's we don't see it anymore. Who knows, right?
And
But I'm not letting go of it yet.
what I will say is that it's 3-8 overall, and the 2 wins that it has are against Rakan, which is a good matchup.
That is a small sample size, but
I
yes,
rest my
okay,
case.
sure.
Yeah.
And like Lamau says in the live chat, I think people just get overly horny on the Q in lane. We definitely saw that out of Vulcan, right?
Okay, well,
we definitely did.
here's the thing though. Like, I was looking this up because I was like, first of all, this matchup 1 sucks, and I was like, well, why does it suck? And I was like, well, Leona Q is really short cooldown. So I went and I did a little bit of math about this. Mumu Q, yeah, sure. The whole reason why like Mumu is like this big new spicy support pick is because you got the 2 Qs, and there's only a 3-second cooldown in between the Qs. However, the recharge time on rank 1 Q is 16 seconds. So if you ever take an extended fight in bot lane in a Mumu against Leona, Leona gets 2 more stuns than a Mumu does in an extended fight. And if whatever you consider an extended fight is like 15 seconds, Leona gets an additional 2 stuns than a Mumu does. So like, you lose level 1. Like, the whole point about like a Mumu support being like good is like it has a lot of like all-in potential. Level 1, we can like burn summoner spells, and I think that's what we've seen out of the good teams, especially like when you're picking it into not Leona. You'll see people trade flashes level 1 and then regank the lane when the immobile enemy support has no flash. You just queue onto them. But against Leona, you ever queue in on a Mumu, you just insta-die, have to flash out. It's just...
Well, and Vulcan did it after he already had queued in and his Aftershock or whatever was down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that just makes it even worse. And Leona had no Aftershock either, but she's just naturally tanky. So, you know who's going to win that trade. That was pretty bad. He ended up hitting a minion on his second Q, but I think even if he lands his Q on the Leona, I don't think it looks much better anyway.
Yeah.
But let's move on. What's next?
Got a little talk about the group stage now, because our groups have been, or the groups are official. Yes. Although we kind of knew what they were going to be, should there not be any crazy upsets. I mean, the one upset you could consider was that DFM made it out of Group B instead of BYG, but that doesn't change the fact in terms of where the other NA, LPL, and LCK teams were going to be placed. So
we're still screwed. We're still in a rough spot.
So actually,
that's to be expected.
Well, honestly though, my opinion on this has actually changed. I think if you go back and you look at other NA groups in the past, I think it's actually easier than before. And I just want to throw out some various groups that, you know, NA teams have been put in before.
Okay.
Let's go to Season 8, because there's a couple that I want to... Well, I'm going to mainly talk about Season 8, 9, and 10, because I think if we look back at those, we've actually had worse groups than these. So Season 8.
Okay.
We had C9 in a group with RNG, Gen.G, Vitality. And I think on paper, going into the tournament, everybody viewed that as like, holy fuck, insanely hard group. Gen.G's former world champion. RNG looks like the best team in the world after just winning MSI. And I'm not really speaking about the results of the group, but just what the groups looked like to begin with. And I think that is just as big a group of death as this Group A is right now when you compare the two.
Vitality was a good team at that time. That was with Jizuke?
Vitality was the number 2 EU team.
Was Jizuke on that team?
Yep, that was like Jizuke, Cowboy Shard, Kikis, and Jack Troll, and somebody else. Attila.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next one that I want to point out is also like another NA number 3 seed group, which was in 2019, where you had Clutch Gaming as a 3rd seed who just came out of play-ins. They were in a group with Fnatic, RNG, and SKT. Like, that's a pretty hard group as well. And then you also look at 2019, Team Liquid was in a group with IG, who had just come off of winning Worlds, Damwon in 2019, who were like the spicy new LCK team, and also AHQ, who were the number 1 LMS team. You look at that group on paper, like, that group is insanely hard as well. And then we can easily just flip over to 2020. TSM had a pretty hard group with Gen.G, Fnatic, LNG. Team Liquid had a hard group. Who was in their group again?
They had G2 last year. They had Suning.
Yeah, G2, Suning, and Machi. Machi was the number 1 PCS team. Then, help me out here. FlyQuest is in a group with DRX, Top Esports, and Unicorns of Love, who like were also supposed to be a very hard group. So like, what I'm saying is, I think if we actually look at the groups right now, like, I think we're actually in a better spot than we were before revisiting it, because I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
You've helped me here because I made this argument last week. You're just doing a much better job of putting the argument forward. Do you remember me saying last week, or I guess it was like a week and a half ago, whenever we did our last episode, that like if we were to do these draws over and over again, would this be a better or worse draft on average? Or do you remember me saying that?
Yeah, I do remember you saying. I still don't think that matters, but I'm just saying
what I should have done though was gone to look in the past to see what the groups look like to make the example of why this isn't as bad as it's still bad. And the point that I was trying to make, and that you've done a better job of making, is that no matter what, like Cloud9, TL, and 100 Thieves are going to have a tough situation. Like North America is just going to have a rough situation because we are a worse region. Like that's just the way it's going to go. You're usually going to get a Korean team, an LPL team, and an EU team, and just naturally those leagues are better. So that's why I was saying like this to me does feel like a high roll, a slight one albeit, but a high roll nonetheless, just because I feel like there's some teams that I'm like, okay, I can see a world where we get out, even though it's like these are not high chances and we're still more than likely to struggle. I think it's still a good group draw. I really do.
Yeah, and I mean, and then like if we want to go a little bit more specific, like you want to look at it from Cloud9's perspective, like I think they would probably rather be in a group with Damwon, because I think C9 thinks that they can beat them because they've done it in the past. Like they went 2-2 against Damwon at MSI, and that was when Damwon was like still, you know, a very, very hyped team just coming off of winning the World Championships. And if you're Cloud9, you know, yes, FPX is just going to be this big scary monster that you're probably not going to beat. But in Cloud9's mind, like you got to beat Rogue and Damwon, and your hopes, you know, for Cloud9 and 100 Thieves is that you 2-0 Rogue and Detonation Focus Me, and you have to go 1-1 against any of the other two teams. Hopefully you get 3-3 and you go tiebreaker. You look at Group D, and you look at it from TL's perspective, like they, in a sense, high rolled because one, you have the weakest LPL team, you know, in terms of seeding. You have Genji, who was kind of coming on, you know, they didn't end the season very well, and then
No, they didn't.
And then like, I mean, yeah, sure, Cloud9 played like shit at MSI, but like, dude, they beat Mad Lions as well. Like TL can beat Mad Lions. Like it's not like an unwinnable matchup. So like,
I agree.
if TL can be better than just two of Genji, Mad Lions, and LNG, like you got a shot. And you know, yes, it's obviously very, very hard because, you know, if you look at groups A and B, you have to beat one of Damwon, FPX, EDG, and SKT or T1 if you're seeing on our 100 Thieves. But on the TL side, like I kind of said it, like Group D feels like the biggest group of life. And you know,
we are fucking overdosing on copium right now. Just so people, the listeners, we know that doesn't necessarily mean that we're wrong, though. Like, there's always a chance, right? And that's the copium take, but there is always a chance. Like, we've seen North American teams get out of really, really tough situations in the past. This year is no different. It's that you have a small chance, but a chance nonetheless.
Yeah, okay, I'm just reading the chat. Give a quick rundown. Most likely, least likely NA team to make it out of their group.
So I think it's the same as I would have said last time. So I think TL still has the best chance. I don't think 100 Thieves is that far behind, by the way, as far as chances of getting out. And then Cloud9 the worst chance because, well, the only reason the hopium take that I had last time was that maybe the month and a half that Cloud9 has had to get better and fix some of their issues that could help them, but we saw them make a lot of the same mistakes as I've mentioned, and so I have not a lot of faith. If I were to guess, I would say Cloud9 is probably going to pick up one win, and that might be generous. So, yeah.
I would actually say that I think C9 has the only reason, and I just want to make this clear, the only reason I say that C9 has a better chance than 100 Thieves is because we've seen that C9 could beat Damwon. For example, if we put any other top team that's not Damwon in this group, I would say that 100 Thieves probably has a better chance of getting out, only because we've seen C9 beat Damwon is the only reason that I say that they
Can I play devil's advocate, though? I'm going to play devil's advocate and try to poke holes in your theory here.
Sure.
We haven't seen 100 Thieves with the opportunity to play
that's
T1
fair.
or
hey,
EDG,
dude,
right?
I'm just saying, like, that's my only, like, that's my only point to my argument. Like,
yeah,
there's no other opinion that I have of it other than we saw them go 2-2 against Damwon. Should have gone 3-1 if Sven doesn't get one shot by GP. By the way, just gonna point that out there. Yeah, I don't know. I do think like it's really, really difficult. I think Team Liquid has like a way higher chance than the other two combined. Like for example, like if Team Liquid has like a 4 out of 10 chance to get out, C9
4
and
out of 10.
I don't know, like
40%.
Well, I'm just. It's just an arbitrary number, man. Shut up.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Like, and then C9 has like 1.1, and 100 Thieves has 1. Like that's what my thing is. Like, it's only it's only the slightest of edges because we've seen them beat Damwon.
Okay.
We want to give any
40.
Well, I was gonna say
40% might be a little generous.
Well, it's not. It's just an arbitrary number. It's not 40%.
Yes. I understand.
Okay. Do we want to give like official who we think's gonna get out of groups?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through it really quick. Is that cool? Can I just do group A, B, C, D and just go through it?
Yeah,
Or do you
sure.
want to go group by group? Okay, so group A, I'm going Damwon FPX. I should say let's do it in order of who I think is 1-2. I'll go
Okay.
FPX then Damwon.
Okay.
Group B, I will go EDG T1. That's not really fun, but it can I be biased and just go 100T for the mems?
Sure. I mean,
Okay, I'm going EDG 100 Thieves then.
okay.
Copium, cracked out on Copium. Group C, I'm going RNG and Fnatic.
Okay.
And then Group D, I am going Mad Lions. Oh boy. If I do 100 Thieves for the mems, I gotta do TL for the mems.
Wow, wow, wee wah, 2NA.
Mad Lions and Team Liquid. All aboard the Copium train, the Hopium train. Both of them are leaving the station. Get your tickets now. All right, JNT, go for it. Who you got?
Well, I already used up all my copium and hopium, so I unfortunately cannot pick any NA teams. But
Okay.
Group A, I'll go FPX1, Damwon 2. Group B, T1 number 1, EDG number 2. Group C, RNG1, Hanwha Life 2. No copium there. Hanwha Life is better than Fnatic.
Wait,
PSG
well,
Talon.
hold on. Did I miss it? Did you say T1 in
Yeah.
number 1 in Group B?
Yes, I did.
And then EDG? Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Group C, RNG1, Hanwha Life 2. Group D, LNG1, Mad Lions 2.
So LNG1?
Yep.
Okay.
I
I don't think that that's that like hot of a take. Like I think that that is a respectable take because I think LNG did look really good in playing. So I don't think you could sleep on them. And then you've got Hanwha Life getting out of that group.
Yeah, the main thing, the main reason why I kind of favor Hanwha, it's hard to say because I think them and Fnatic is really close. I think it's really close. But one of the main reasons why I think, I have a little more faith that Hanwha Life will edge it out is because the areas where Hanwha Life has struggled is also the areas where you could say Fnatic is, I wouldn't say at its weakest, but at its most inexperienced. Like, you have Adam in top lane for Fnatic, and you also have Bwipo jungle. And I think Bwipo has been doing a great job in the jungle, and I don't think there's any reason to believe that he's not going to, there's no reason to believe that he's going to play horribly at Worlds. But I do think that, like, if Hanwha's going to win games and just, like, avoid the potential problem areas, it's a bit of a favorable matchup against Fnatic. And like that's kind of my only reason. Like, for example, like if Fnatic was like, I don't know, like if it was like the opposite, where like Fnatic's top side was like absolutely ginormous huge, like their bot lane is right now with upset Hylissang, I would probably give the edge to Fnatic. But it's kind of like where Hanwha Life is weak, Fnatic is also weak, sort of.
Okay.
And I think I would rather take Chovy Deft Vista over Niski upset Hylissang.
Okay.
But slightly, because I think Upset and Hylissang are going to be really good. I think I kind of said this last episode. They're kind of like on the same track that Reckless and Hylissang were at 2020 Worlds, like to be one of the best spot lanes at the tournament.
Okay, and do we want to do crystal ball pick?
Yeah,
as they're calling it.
Yeah, they just added this. I think we already talked about it before, but they added this new thing.
Explain it anyways. Explain
it.
Yeah,
they added this new thing to Pick'ems, which is called the crystal ball pick, where you just pick the tournament winner from the get go, and they did this before the play-in stage, and the off chance that you're going to actually pick a play-in team, because I guess they support that Fiesta for that part, but not the Pick'ems. I picked FPX, but I didn't know that you couldn't change your pick once you made it, so I actually wanted to go Damwon, but I was just like scrolling through, just clicked FPX, and I'm like, do you want to pick FPX? I was like, yeah, sure. But then I like went to go scroll down to pick Damwon, and it was just grayed out, and I was like clicking it, and nothing happened, and I couldn't change my pick. I picked FPX, but I wanted to go Damwon.
So here's the thing, though. Like, first of all, that's funny as hell because I did the same thing. I locked it in. And I'm like, oh shit, I guess it's locked in. Because normally they let you change that kind of stuff. But yeah. I think that for me personally, I think FPX has a better chance of winning than Damwon does. I really do. Some of the things that I've heard lately that I'm a little bit nervous about is Khan talking about how like he thinks this is his last season, and that like that stuff that you say after the year. It seems like he's kind of done with it. I don't know. This is maybe I'm reading a little bit too far into some of the things that he's been saying, but he seems like he's done with League and like he just wants it to be over, and that's not a good sign out of a guy before a tournament. But I mean, I can't blame him for being that way. He's played forever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, he has to do. He's doing his military service next year, so it's like
right.
It's the last his last chance
Yeah.
anyway, so
Yeah. So
might
that
as
makes
well
me a little
embrace
bit
it.
nervous. That makes me a little bit nervous, but I still expect good things out of Damwon. But I would just say that I think FPX is more likely to win than Damwon, in my opinion. But for me, I went with RNG, which I don't know. Maybe that's surprising to a lot of people. Maybe it's not. I'm not willing to write this team off. I think that they're still really, really good. I can't forget that they're MSI champions. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I really like RNG. I think that they're good, and I think they're very likely to move on. So yeah, but I mean, realistically, I think that the teams that we won't be surprised if they win are Damwon, FPX, EDG, and probably RNG. Am I missing any?
P1.
T1? Nah, I'd still be surprised if T1 won, honestly.
Faker at Worlds.
I
Can't
know
be
it's Faker at
surprised.
Worlds. It is Faker at Worlds. I mean, but I don't know. I guess I don't think T1 is as good as they once were, despite being still a very good team.
It's true.
I don't think that they're what they used to be. But
He's just got the Michael
there's
Jordan effect, dude. Like,
there's no free wins when you're playing against T1. I'll say that. You can't discount that they definitely could go on a run. Absolutely they can. I just don't think it's likely. The one other thing that I wanted to talk about, because you brought this up last night, and I was going to bring it up on today's show, was there was a lot of talk from us, a lot of people, not just us, before the tournament, that BYG and PSG should probably be somewhere even, because in the 10 games that they played at the end of their regular season, they went 5-5, right? BYG beat PSG in the winners bracket finals, but then in the grand finals, PSG came back and won 3-2, so they won in that series. And so a lot of people, myself included, said it's likely that these teams are probably on par. Now, BYG did not look very good in play-ins in comparison to what we thought they would look like. And so it brings up the question of, is maybe PSG not as good as we thought they were? And again, this is all like, there's very little to go off of when it comes to this, right? Because what we saw PSG play at MSI, and I haven't seen them play a game since. So there's very limited information to go off of. Has your opinion possibly changed on PSG, JNT?
I don't think so. I mean, I, for one, wasn't kind of on board the BYG train in terms of placing them close to PSG. I mean, I think I had them way down on my list in terms of like our tier list that we did. I think I had PSG in A and I had BYG in D. And after the playing stage, they'd be dropping down to an F. But kind of like we said at the start, kind of like we said at the start of the show, like all of our opinions and thoughts on BYG are just like tainted now because of what happened. So
right.
I think, had this news not broken out, I would probably say my opinion of PSG has dropped, yes, but I can't really say that now. Like, there's no argument to make to say why our opinion of them should drop based off of all the drama out of the BYG camp.
Yeah, and for me, I feel much more comfortable going off of the idea that they looked really good at MSI on a regular basis, more than I could say, well, BYG and PSG played about even, so therefore they're even. In, like, I feel more confident that PSG is still a good team. Of course, we'll find out. But I feel more confident in looking at actual gameplay that I've watched, and at MSI, I thought they were great. So, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think you can take anything away from PSG just because BYG looked bad. Although I will admit that it does expose my very, very, I don't know, noob way of analyzing the team. But I mean, I did admit in the last episode that we didn't have any real information to go off of. I don't watch PCS. I can't watch every league, right? But just thought I would bring it up because I thought you brought up the question last night, and I was like, well, yeah, it's good. It's something to wonder, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, quickly before we move on, I just wanted to point out a couple matches. First day of group stage is Monday, 6 a.m., so bright and early. But there's two, I think, very key matches on the first
6
day.
6 a.m. What time?
My time? Or
is that you time?
Well, I guess it's 7 a.m. EST, 4 a.m. PST if we're going to be all like that. But the first game is Damwon versus FPX. So could be the potential battle for first place in that group. I think for the most part, all the other games aren't that exciting, except for the NA boys who have TL versus Mad Lions. That could be, a potential important game.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, that should be a very important game if TL want a chance to get out, because I think for TL to get out, I think they have the potential to be better than Mad Lions and better than Gen G. I think I don't know. I guess I'm kind of high on LNG because I think all their players are really good. After watching them play, obviously they're against bad teams, and it's easy to look good against the bad players and the bad teams. But I like what I've seen from LNG so far. And also, the last game of the day, C9 versus Rogue. That could be the potential.
Let's go.
That could be the potential 0-6 team in that group because I think it's totally capable if both of these teams go 0-4 against FPX and Demwon, and it'll be C9 and Rogue battling for that 0-6 spot maybe.
We've got NA versus EU to start. This is the opportunity. You got to cheese early. You gotta bring out the cheese drafts as soon as you can before everyone knows what your strats are. It's time to pounce.
And then just let people know 100 of these playing EDG, so they're gonna get smacked probably.
Maybe, probably, but maybe not. Maybe not. Anyways, that should be fun. Honestly, look, the one good thing, and I'll say good in quotation marks, is that there's no expectation as a North American fan. If they win, it's bonus. If they lose, it's back to the drawing board where we just get shit on by EU fans. And
yeah, because I think for this year, this year specifically, I feel like the expectations are at their lowest, which I think bodes well for NA because normally the NA number 1 seed is like, oh my god, NA number 1 seed, like you had like you. But it's like, dude, like they have EDG and SKT or T1 in their group. Like, sure, like C9 have Damwon and FPX in the group. Like, you're not making out of that. Like, you're most likely not.
Every year, the expectations are at the lowest, though. Like, it just gets lower and lower and lower every year. The expectations, because it feels like North America winning Worlds, the chances get lower and lower and lower every year. Like, Worlds is hard, man.
Yeah,
it's freaking hard.
It's sad to say that our greatest days could be behind us.
Maybe, probably. Who knows? All right. What else? What else we doing? We still got a lot of quick news to get through later.
Yeah, well, that's quick news. So, there's a couple things. Last thing about Worlds, the Worlds song came out pretty much like a couple days after we did our last episode. I thought the video was really, really good. I just thought the song was very vanilla. So.
I like the song. I don't know. The thing is, I'm never too crazy about the song anyways, so like take my opinion with a grain of salt on it. Whatever. I like the video. I like the song. I don't really care that much, to be honest. And you know what else I wondered too is I wondered if the interest in the World song has fallen off a bunch because I was just looking, and this is a little thing, but I was just looking at the total views on the video on YouTube, and it's got like 10 million views. You look at the World's videos in the past, Phoenix has like 100 million views, and Rise has like 100 and something million, and like views on YouTube. Maybe there's nothing really to look at with that, like whatever, it's views, but like it's not. I don't think people care about it nearly as much as they used to. Maybe I'm crazy. Are you looking that up right now?
Yeah. So yeah, Burn It All Down has 10 million. Takeover has 51 million. Rise has
Takeover was last year, right?
Yeah, that's season 10. Sorry, Phoenix has 108 million, and Rise has 282 million. We're gonna exclude Rise because I think that was kind of like a special case scenario where the video was just like absolutely bonkers and just made the song. Because if I'm gonna be honest here, the Rise song is not very good. The video is just that good. I think the video makes the song. Like, trust, like, dude, go listen to the song without the video. It's not that good.
I mean, I don't really care. I don't. Like I said, I'm not all that hyped about the World song, but I just wondered how other people felt about it.
But I just think we're in the same boat this year, where the video makes the song. Like I think, like the song, like if you listen to the song by itself, like it's just a bunch of meh. But like the video is so sick. Like the Chovy versus Showmaker, like 1v1, like that shit's.
How many
epic.
views does Legends Never Die have?
That's
Legends Never Die.
Almost 2 million. Sorry, almost 200 million. 188
Yeah, so
million.
like there's definitely a drop off. Like we're at 10 million now.
Yeah, but I mean that'll
Worlds goes on.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like Takeover, which came out pretty much a year ago, has 51 million views. So probably a year from now, Burn It All Down will probably hit like 30 something. Would be my guess.
Anyways, any other thoughts on it? I don't really got it. Oh yeah, no. I do have thoughts on it. There was the TL guy that was all pissed off that Blapper was in it. That was something.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were a little bit confused when like Reckless was in the video and everything. But you know what? I think somebody came out and said like they started designing like the story and the characters and what the video was going to be like back in February. And you kind of
Yeah.
work like when you have a super like high production animation like that, like you got to start working on it way back in time. And
Yeah,
I
it
think
takes time.
at the start of 2021, I think it was a pretty safe assumption that G2 was going to make Worlds. So like
Yeah.
if like come on, like let's be honest here, everybody. If we go back to February 2021 and we say that G2 was not going to make Worlds, I think everybody would have called you crazy.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that like I don't really care who they put in it. I get it takes a long time to do this shit. I don't get upset at who they have in
Yeah,
it.
I don't care
But I will
either.
say I was surprised that it was Blabber and not Perks. Like if you're gonna go with a Cloud9 guy,
Yeah.
wouldn't you go with Perks?
Yeah.
That was a little bit like, huh,
Yeah,
okay, whatever.
I did like the video. I guess just to close that Reckless point out, like Jackie Love was also in the video a ton, and that guy's not in Worlds either. And again, I think it would have been a safe assumption to say that Top Esports was going to make Worlds again this year, back in February of 2021.
Was Chovy in it? I think Chovy was,
Yeah,
right?
Chovy was like the main character with Showmaker, dude.
Oh, I don't remember, man. I watched it one time. When did it come out? Like a week ago or something?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
remember.
but I thought it was really cool. They had like a bunch of those like little mini battles, kind of in the middle of it, where they had like the Shy and Ben doing like Fiora 1v1, and they had the Blabber Power Evil thing. They also had BRTT versus some other CBLOL guy in there, and one other one, which it was like an EU one. It was Reckless versus somebody else. Thought it was cool. The video was super super nice. Loved the animation. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
We'll get into our quick news. We'll try to get through it pretty quickly. There's a lot of it, but a lot of it's not too lengthy. The one lengthy thing, the 2022 preseason video came out 2 days ago. To give people the quick rundown. They're making some new items, some new mythics, some new legendaries. They're adding 2 more elemental drakes that are absolutely broken. Oh God, please help us.
You don't know that yet. They could still balance things out, no?
Just like they balanced Dragon Souls and Elder Dragon.
Look,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they have a great history, but I'm saying is that we don't know what's out yet. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, and Vex is pretty balanced as well, huh? Okay. Well, safe to say.
The thing is, so here's the thing though. So look, they are slow to balance things, right? But sometimes, well, a lot of times they do eventually get around to balancing it. I would just say that people are usually upset with how long it takes to balance something, like Aphelios, for example.
Yeah,
Or Viego, for example. Eventually, these champions will get balanced. It just takes so freaking long for them to do it. So it's not the idea. The idea that they're coming out with a new dragon isn't the problem. It's that it's probably going to be overtuned, and it will probably be overtuned for too long.
Okay.
That's my thing.
I don't want to jump too far down the rabbit hole in this thing, but I think Cadril said something on his stream that I thought was pretty interesting. But to give some quick context, in the league video, in the preseason rundown video, they basically said like Riot went with the opinion that they don't think that their champions are balanced. Sorry, they think that their champions are balanced when they release them, which one is completely wrong because like Gwen, Viego, Vex, Aphelios, Senna, Set, all these champions are absolutely retardedly broken on release, and they're not balanced at all.
All the time.
And it does,
all the time
as you say, take a long time for them to actually get into a balanced state. It literally took Set a whole year and Senna a whole year to get balanced when the champion came out. And we even see that right now with Vex. Like Vex is a new champion that got released like what, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Like it's a new champion sitting at like a 52.5% win rate. If the champ is broken, like dude. And so to quickly jump on this Cadril thing, Cadril said on his stream that he was watching a Rioter stream, and he said if they released Karthus today, everyone would complain that that champion is super, super broken because it has a global ulti that hits all 5 people, whatever. I actually disagree with that because I think it's not these like huge impact abilities that's what makes champions like really OP. It's all the movement and dashes and invisibility. I think is the problem. Like I think when Senna was getting released, everybody was like, "Oh my fucking god, this ulti that goes across the map damages people and shields people, and this Q that like it damages people and heals people." It's like, no, dude. The most broken part about Senna is her E and her increasing range on her passive. And the most broken parts of when Akali was reworked is not all of her damage, it was her invisibility on her shroud. And the stuff that was like broken about Gwen was her W and just the way that like that whole thing works. And like, while I do think that like if you take a look at old champions, say like, oh, if they would be released today, like everyone would just say they're broken because of their kits and whatnot. It's like, dude, like It's all the movement, invisibility, the dashes. Like when Samira came out, she could dash to allies. Her W was like a 1.5 second duration. I think now it's like a 0.5 or 0.75 duration. Like so many champion kits are overloaded. That's another thing that they tried to like claim in their video, that like we don't think that champion kits are overloaded. Like, are you joking me? Like, you remember when
Yeah.
Camille got released? Like, how many things have they removed from like Camille's kit with like the attack speed steroid on her thing? How many times she was nerfed? How many times her E and her W were nerfed? Her Q is still like, it's a fucking Cho'Gath ulti on a 3-second cooldown. Like,
Yeah, no,
bah.
you're right. Honestly, you're honestly right, and I think the frustration that people have with the balance of the game is not. Again, it goes back to the idea that it's not so much that the kits are always. Sometimes it's the kits are just broken, but sometimes it's also that it takes so long to fix some of the things that come out. And so when they say they come out with these new champions and say they're not going to be broken, how many times do we have to see a champion be absolutely busted time and time again and still be fed the same idea that like we don't think champions kits are broken? It's like, well, no, they kind of are.
And it was hilarious because they said, except for Dr. Mundo, like, oh, that was the champion that was broken when we were like,
Yeah.
are you fucking kidding me? Like, Dr.
Yeah.
Mundo, I couldn't care
And
less about Dr. Mundo.
yeah, I don't envy the idea. Like, it's very difficult to balance a game of this scale. So I don't envy that. I realize that it's difficult, but I do think the solid majority of people will say that, like, it would be nice if they have a hit every once in a while. It feels like time and time again, every champion that's released is too busted, and every change that they come out with is too busted. And it feels like they miss time and time again. Again, that doesn't mean that their job is easy, but it would be nice to see them get one right every once in a while. It seems like they're wrong so much more than they're right. And I think that's one of the other issues with
Yeah.
all the changes that they come out with, or that even when they are wrong, they refuse to admit like that they're wrong, and then it takes 2 years for the changes to come into effect.
Yeah, and even with like, let's stop talking about new champions. Like even old reworked champions, like there are very few reworked champions that I think you could consider are balanced and were like when reworked were balanced. Like Irelia, Akali, Galio was like completely busted for a year and a half. Like they've also whiffed
Pantheon,
on, Pantheon. It was perma pick ban at Worlds in 2019 reworking it. The Juggernaut rework in season 5. Like Jesus Christ. Like there are very few champion reworks that have really hit the mark. I think the best examples that you can consider are like Warwick and Scion, are like probably the two best champion reworks that they did, that have like were never like insanely broken, but were also like never absolutely terrible. Like God, I think the Kale rework they did was like absolutely stupid. I hate those kind of champion play styles where it's just like you reach a certain point to the game and the champion will just 1v9. Like Kale's just like a worse version of Kassadin in my opinion. Less counterplay and like God. Yeah, 200 years.
anyways,
Jesus.
so much for quick news.
Yeah, I don't care, dude. Right, game 60.
Yeah.
All right, actual quick news now. One thing that happened quite a long time ago, but I thought would be pretty relevant to bring it up now. eBay99, the homie, he tweeted out about the LCS saying that the LCS is the MLS. And for people who don't know what the MLS is the North American version of their soccer league. And if you don't know basically how that works, it basically works the exact same as NA. They suck against the international teams, and they sign all the aging star players. And I was like,
Right.
damn, pretty spot on with that take.
There's a lot of parallels. Do you want to read out his tweet?
Okay, hold on. Okay, start talking, and I'm going to read out the tweet.
Well, I have it here.
Okay, read it out then.
He said, NA feels like the MLS right now. There's not enough local talent to feel like you're supporting your region by rooting for teams. There's not enough quality talent to feel like you're rooting for teams who have a shot at being best in the world. Give us a reason to root for teams. And so you said spot on. I think he's a little bit off, because I still the part where I think he's a little bit off is there's not enough local talent to feel like you're supporting your region by rooting for teams. For me, I still have no issue with rooting for North American teams. So that's where I disagree. But the idea that he's trying to get at, in which I do agree with, is that it would be nice to see more North American talent. That's the part that I think he's a little bit off, in my opinion. But the idea that he's got is right there, and there's a lot of parallels to the MLS. So I think that his tweet is really maybe not spot on, but pretty damn close, I would say. And he brings up some good points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the main thing that I think with GBay99 is he is a bit of a homer in terms of NA talent, and I definitely agree with you that me personally, even though I'm like exclusively a Cloud9 fan, not necessarily like an NA fan per se, like you treat these players like Impact and Sven Skaren and Sven and Bjergsen, like while they're EU players, like or like LCK players, or JJ, like they feel like NA players now. Like they've been
Right.
here for enough time. They're pretty vocal overall in the community. Like they're marquee players on marquee teams, and they do feel like they're NA players. How like Sven, dude, like he feels like an NA player now. Like
Yeah, he's
Fudge,
been here forever.
like I feel like Fudge like already starting to feel like an NA player because like that's where he's primarily made his mark. Yes, he was on Mammoth. They went to Worlds in 2019, but like he's been on C9 for 2 years now, played in Academy. Now is like, the best player on C9 probably. Like I don't know. I feel like next year we'll be talking about how like Fudge is like kind of an NA player at this point.
Right. So when you're cheering for Cloud9, do you feel at all like, man, I'm not cheering for an NA team?
No, like it's
Probably not.
like
Right.
in my
So that's what I
opinion,
think it's a little bit off,
in
right?
my opinion, the
You're
only
still cheering for
player,
your region.
yeah, like in my opinion, the only C9 player that's not like who I would really call North American is Perks. It's just because he got here like, last year at the beginning of the year, and he's like a long time EU player. Like he's been playing in EU
Right.
since in Challenger series in season 5.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, it is a good point, though. There's a lot of parallels there with the MLS, and so I thought it was a really interesting tweet, and I thought it was good for just a little miniature discussion there.
Yeah.
What else we got?
We got some free agent NA stuff. Dardoch is a free agent. Interesting though, he's only looking to be a player, not as a coach. He most recently joined Immortals after getting kicked from Dignitas as a positional coach.
Right,
No,
and
assistant coach. Sorry.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's looking to go to Europe, though. It looks like he wants to play in the LEC or in the ERL, which is the European Regional League.
Yeah.
Like so, like LFL, like the French team or any of those leagues. I think that's most likely where he would go first.
Probably.
But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe he comes back to LCS. But I mean, he's had how many chances on an LCS team? A lot. So
I mean,
not counting on
if
it.
you were him, like he probably at this point would rather go to EU and get maybe a fresh start potentially.
Yeah, I think so too.
God, that'd be so weird if like there was an import from EU and it was Dardoch.
Oh yeah,
Oh
that would be. And wouldn't it be funny if he ended up getting to Worlds eventually, and Dardoch plays against, I don't know, TSM for example? That would be great because TSM let go of him, and no one wants to sign Dardoch. If anyone remembers that meme, so that would be a great story. But anyways, carry on.
TSM Academy, they released Cody Sun, Haunter, and Sword. I think Cody Sun and Haunter, those guys are coming to a close, I think. But Sword, I think, is decent. I mean, that guy's been on TSM Academy for what, like 2 years now, ever since the Blaze Olive left. I think he's actually a good player.
I didn't watch much Academy this year, but I did feel like after watching Cody Sun and Haunter in the past years, I did not feel like they deserved to be in Academy. I thought definitely they could have played in the LCS this year, and I thought they should have, but I mean, they didn't. Who knows? For anyone who watched Academy, you'll probably have a better opinion than I do on them. But who knows? Maybe they come back, maybe they don't.
Next up, Ole is looking for a team.
Ole. I'm gonna be blunt here. Okay, let me start off by saying I love Ole. I think he's hilarious. That guy's wacky. His tweets are always random and hilarious. But if I'm being completely honest, I would not want him on my team. Because, well, did he not bench himself at MSI that one time?
Yeah, he did. But that was in season 8.
Look,
I mean, it was.
So hold on. Let me hear this. Let me say this out. There is nothing wrong with saying, look, I'm struggling right now. I can't handle this. That you always should take into account your mental health first. However, if you're an LCS org, that's a big risk that you're taking to take a player that might not be able to handle pressure, right? And if a team does not want a player that can't handle pressure, eventually pressure will come, right? Like, so it feels ruthless. But I think you have to be ruthless if you're picking out your team. You can't take a player that has a history of not being able to perform or play in really important games, right? And it's sad that that's how it works, but I think that's how it works. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. He went to Golden Guardians after, right, and was playing with FBI in season 9, and then they preferred to like play Keith support than Ole. So that, I think, can tell you a little bit something about the likelihood of him joining a starting team.
I'm definitely still cheering for Ole to make it back to LCS or whatever league he can join. I'm just saying that as a GM, I'm a little bit worried if he's my only support that can play at a high level, because what if some of those issues come back again, which is it feels bad, but that's just the way business works, right? You need to be able to have players that can play and perform when it matters. That's business, unfortunately.
Next up, the LCS Players Association announced that they put out their newest edition of the contract database, which also includes LCS players who've opted to share their contract information.
Yeah, so they didn't. The tweet didn't seem all that clear to me to who will have access to the contract database. I would guess that it's just the players. And the idea behind this is that if players know what other players' contracts look like, it gives you a better chance to be able to negotiate your own contract. So, like, let's say me and JNT are LCS players and we have the same skill level, but he's making 4 times what I am. I get to go into next year's discussion saying, look, I'm about as good, or I have the same amount of accomplishments as he does. I should be able to be paid somewhere in the ballpark of what he makes. It just gives that little bit of an edge to players, because all the contracts being kept a secret is just a huge advantage to the owners, and I just don't think it's fair to the players. So I don't know who's going to have access to this database, but it sounds like the Players Association is doing something, which, if people have heard anything about the Players Association in the past, they don't have a history of having a large impact on the league, to be honest. So it's nice to see that they're doing stuff and actually trying to help out the players.
Next up, this one was kind of weird, but we figured we'd mention it. Tarzan, the NA streamer, not Tarzan, the LNG jungler, joining Cloud9 as a Wild Rift pro player.
If this came out on April 1st, I wouldn't believe it. This sounds like some April Fool's shit.
Yeah.
Tarzan is a Wild Rift pro all of a sudden, and he's on Cloud9. What?
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, as someone that's never been interested in Wild Rift, I'm thinking, good. See ya. Like, I don't have any problems with Wild Rift, but I think Tarzan is absolute cancer for League of Legends. I think anyone that's ever played a game with him will tell you that guy sucks. He's a really good player, but he sucks for the community. I hate toxicity, and he is one of the most toxic players ever. So, see ya. I don't want him back in League of Legends anymore. Take care, comb your hair. I'm done with him. Goodbye.
All right. And last thing we got for NA stuff was Niles, former GG top laner, had a pretty interesting tweet about free agency that I don't think was going to help his career moving forward.
You got the tweet?
Oh god.
I can find it.
Let's see if I can find it quickly. Yeah. He deleted it.
It's in.
Nope, I found it. It says,
okay, go.
We're going into the off-season soon. For anyone that is aspiring to join a professional team for the first time, remember that it's not your spot until you sign the dotted line. Even if a team promises you a spot, they can always rescind. I know from first-hand experience. Smile.
Not a good move. JNT, why is that not a good move?
Because when you play like dog shit, you're gonna get benched, and then if you passive aggressively tweet out about your org benching you, and the funny thing about Niles is, like, dude, like, let's be honest here, this guy played like fucking dog shit in the first half of Spring Split, like
he did,
or in Spring Split, and was rightfully benched, but he continued to maintain the opinion on Twitter and on stream that like he wasn't a bad player, and that like everybody was like overblowing like the number of times that he would die in game, and how he averaged like 9 deaths a game towards the start of the year. Like, dude, like at a certain point, like you gotta like humble yourself and like really like take a step back and see how bad you're playing, because he's like, this is like I feel like the 3rd or 4th time like he's like done some like passive aggressive shit to like try to flame Golden Guardians, or like push back at the community that say like, oh, you guys are wrong about this. It's like, dude, like you're bad, like sorry, just accept it.
That doesn't help your case. It doesn't help you get signed to a team if you're gonna call out your org like that, which, by the way, your org has every right to bench you if you're playing bad. Like, of course it's not guaranteed your spot. When has any spot ever been guaranteed to anyone?
Yeah, anyone. Like Sven got benched.
Sneaky got benched. Yeah. Jensen got like no one. That's just how it works. And like, I feel bad for him because I don't believe he should have been put on an LCS team in the first place. I think it was way too quick to promote him. However, Golden Guardians, we know that they didn't have a lot of cash flow, and so they were really on a budget, and so options were very limited. and therefore he gets put into the LCS. So I do feel bad for Niles because I don't think that it's right to put a player in that kind of position when he's clearly not ready yet. But I mean, we didn't know that at the time, but we definitely do now. However, calling out your org like that is just a bad idea, and I feel bad for the guy because he's just a young kid. He's just doing stuff that he probably doesn't realize is going to have a big effect on his future contract negotiation. Like, no one wants to sign a player that's just going to call them out every time they make. I don't even think it's called a mistake. Like, no spot is ever guaranteed. No, none.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a little bit of immaturity, which again we talked about the BYG thing earlier and how players like they don't realize what kind of thing they're doing. Yeah, there's a lot of immaturity with League of Legends and esports in general. The other thing too is, I think I saw this. So for those that don't know, JNT and I, we met at college. We were part of an esports team. I had never seen this until joining an esports team. You and I'm guessing you grew up playing sports, JNT, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you play basketball or something like that? So I grew up playing sports as well. I had never it never crossed my mind that any spot was ever given to me. Like, playing competitive sports as you grow up, I just thought it was so obvious that no matter what, you could be replaced because you saw it happen all the time. You get benched if you're not playing well. If you're playing well, you're going to get more in hockey ice time or whatever it is, right? Playing time. So to me, there's no surprise by that. But when we went to college and we were part of the esports team, it was so surprising to me to see how many players think that they're entitled to a spot. I've never seen anything like that before in my life, and it's very apparent in esports. And I wonder if it's because people that play esports maybe didn't play sports growing up and never had that kind of environment. I don't know. I do wonder it though. I've never seen it until I was part of an esports team. Never seen that in my life.
Yeah, I definitely got that feeling like, wow, like there's a bunch of people like who are just a bunch of like nobodies, whether it's like people that we know at school who are trying to make an esports team or just like a bunch of randoms like in the mid to lower tier esports teams that just are like egotistical for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like exactly, you don't deserve shit. Like you got to play well and you got to earn your spot like regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like
really, really strange stuff. And again, he's immature. I'm not going to hold it against him. He's just a young kid still. He'll probably realize a couple years down the road, like, why the hell did I tweet that out? People make mistakes. We move on, right?
Yeah. Okay, move on to some EU stuff quickly. Natakilla sang. He signed a 2-year contract extension with Fnatic. So Hylissang's sticking around. I think he what's the right word? He's definitely the most impactful support in the world, maybe for the better or for the worse. I think that could be a
he's
fair
hella
statement.
aggro.
Yeah,
But the thing is, lately it's been for the better. Like in the past, I would have said it's better and worse. And while that's still true to some extent, it's been a lot more better than worse in the last year. So especially going back to last year's Worlds, he was insane. They were probably the best bot lane, the Fnatic bot lane last year. He's been great, and so yeah, I think it's a really good contract extension. I think you should be really happy for if you're a Fnatic fan.
Yeah. Next up, there's some more G2 rumors that have come out since our last episode. If people remember, the last G2 rumors were that Grabs, Mickey X, and Wonder were not going to be part of the G2 roster. The newest one is apparently Reckless as well. Is not going to be with G2 next year. And I mean, like I said, the rumor right now is that the Yankos and Caps didn't really want to play with him. And we kind of saw that from the actual news, or sorry, not the actual news, but the other rumors that came out last week about Caps. Or no, it wasn't a rumor. Caps did sign a 1-year contract extension. So it kind of felt like, G2 chose Caps to stick with him despite, his poor performances in 2021. And I mean, that's understandable. Like let's not be honest here. Like, he's the second best EU player of all time behind Perks. So it's not too big of a surprise to see G2 stick with him after his, just historic, just history in the LEC and the EU LCS. And, it is hard to it's hard to put a ton of value onto one bad year when you've had so many good ones. But, let's just hope that they didn't make the wrong decision if he plays bad again next year.
Yeah. I think that the only player that they knew that they wanted to keep was Caps. I'm pretty sure that I think that's what the rumor is. I don't know if that's guaranteed, so don't take that as a direct quote or anything like that. And I think Yankos was probably on the bubble. I feel like they were probably weighing their options because Yankos definitely didn't have as great of a year as he has had in the past. But nonetheless, Yankos is still going to be one of the better junglers in the league. And so I think once you decide, like, okay, we're going to go with Caps and Yankos, you're going to start by asking them, like, look, who did you like playing with? Who do you not like playing with? And who is out there that you want to go after? And judging by the idea that Reckless doesn't want to be there and the rumors come out that they don't want to play with him, it's no surprise. And so it's pretty much, in my opinion, it's probably Carlos and a couple of coaches, as well as Yankos and Caps that are building the rest of the roster. It's usually how that would go.
Yeah, and I mean, like, players like Yankos and Caps definitely should have that respect to be involved in those kinds of conversations and be allowed to, maybe not be allowed to handpick the roster, but, you know, have some input on the roster, because I think they've deserved that.
Well, and like if you're the owner, you want to know who your players want to play with. Like that's just, why would you not want to know that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and there's another thing to follow up about that. Carlos tweeted out basically talking about you know, kind of from last year, how the whole Perks to Fnatic thing, and the whole reason I bring that up was because after this whole Reckless thing came out, the rumor was that he was going to join Vitality, or like that was where, you know, he wanted to go, or whatever, the team that he wanted to go to. And that it also came out that, you know, Vitality's allowing Crownshot to explore his options. But Carlos kind of tweeted out a response to that. I just wanted to read it out. It said, Perks to Fnatic is quite possibly the single trade that I would go out of my way to never allow to happen. Like Messi to Real Madrid. If people don't know, Messi and Ronaldo are like the faces of like the Spanish soccer league. Messi on Barcelona, Ronaldo on Real Madrid. If a player we bench wishes to join any European team, TSM, Galatasaray, or an LPL team, we will gladly trade him. We haven't blocked shit. So, I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, I think both of us agreed that it's totally understandable to not send your best player or your most important player in Perks to a team like Fnatic, which is your number one rival. And I think, you know, if you're a smart businessman like Carlos is, like, why would you even want to do that in the first place? And after this whole rumor of Reckless wanting to go to Vitality, there was like 2.0 about this, saying, oh, well, Carlos actually blocked this and it's not allowing it to happen and whatever. And like, if you're not going to play with Reckless, I mean, like, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, if Vitality is willing to pay, like, send him to Vitality. Like, I would be way more worried about Reckless going to a team like maybe Rogue or like Mad Lions or anything like that than you'd be about him going to Vitality, you know?
Yeah, I think blocking Perks from going to Fnatic is one thing. What I think is a little bit different is that you sent Perks to a whole nother league. And now, I don't know how to feel about it because it's just unprecedented. Like, you sent him across the fucking ocean. Now, maybe Perks wanted to go because he knew he was going to get paid more money with Cloud9 than anywhere else. I don't know the specifics behind that. But maybe if Perks wanted to, in fact, go to another LEC team and wasn't able to, then I think it would be a little bit slimy. But there's nothing that's come out that I know of that's indicated that Perks could have gone to another team and didn't have that opportunity. It sounds like he was just blocked to Fnatic. But
yeah,
that's all we know. Actually, we don't even know. That's all that the rumors are. Let's say that.
Yeah, it's just, dude, EU's a bunch of fucking rumors. Like, there's rumors on rumors. Like, dude, like, hopefully free agency will get some concrete answers, because I do think EU could look pretty spicy next year. Like imagine a world where like Reckless goes to Rogue and like Carzzy like leaves Mad Lions, goes to G2 or something, because like that's the rumor, and like, you know, Broken Blades on G2. Like, dude, like LEC could,
there could be a good little mix up.
There could be a little shake up. Fnatic, like, who knows? Like, Fnatic, they might make some changes. They could just run back the same roster because they've only been together for half a year.
Also, there was Grabs tweeted out like the history or US history for dummies tweet.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like, kind of memeing that like he might be going to NA. I don't know. Like,
TSM Grabs.
There's too much memeing in esports to ever get a read off of what anything actually means. Like, it's good and bad, right? Because it's always funny, but it's always like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to take away from that tweet. But anyway.
All right. Okay, we'll bang off these last couple ones. Your boys Suning, they sold their LPL license to Weeaboo, which is like, what is Weeaboo anyway? I know what that shit is. Like what is
that?
It?
How you pronounce it?
I think it's Weeaboo or Weeaboo.
I don't know what it is. I thought it was Weibo.
I think it's Weeaboo.
I have no idea what it is.
Yeah,
Anyways,
isn't it like the
I'm just
Facebook?
sad to
Isn't it like the Facebook of China?
You tell me, man. I don't got a clue. I'm sure people listening know. I don't fucking know. What I do know is that I liked Suning and they were my team, and I hope that doesn't mean that the roster goes anywhere because, well, I want them to stick around.
Dude,
But
LNG is the new Suning at this year's Worlds, man. I'm telling you.
yeah, maybe.
I'm telling you.
Anyways,
You heard it here first.
I liked SOFM, so I'll probably just cheer for whatever team he plays for. Anyways, what's next?
MLXD, former RNG jungler, is apparently suing RNG for some unpaid salary.
I say that kind of joke, but that is kind of serious. Like, dude, we're still dealing with that shit. Like,
Especially in
and
the
these
LPO
orgs-
where they have like a lot of money. Like,
pay your fucking players. I'm so tired of this. It happens in every region. It happened in North America last year with not the academy teams, but help me out here. The
coaching, the Golden Guardians coaching thing.
no.
Oh,
Well, I guess
Tainted
that too.
Minds, that thing.
Tainted Minds, was that the name of the team?
The OS team that was
No,
like
Sola Fide, Solify, whatever that team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that team. Yeah. Anyways, you see it all the time. Pay your fucking players.
Yeah. All right. Next up. Oh my God, this one's crazy, guys. Canyon, damn one jungler, got fined for account sharing. Oh my goodness! Like,
How much did he get fined, J&T?
300,000 Korean won.
Whoa! How much is that in USD?
It's $250. Dude, like, I remember like we saw this news and it's like I know that like Korean won, like the currency, like it's pretty high in number, like similar to like if you have like I don't know, like I know like 5,000 Korean won is not a lot of money in USD, but like 300,000, I was like, oh man, like might be like maybe a couple grand or something. No, it's $250.
We're like 300,000. That sounds like a lot, even though I'm sure there's a conversion rate that's pretty crazy there, but that still sounds like a lot of money. And then it's $250.
Yeah,
so.
there was this thing where apparently Damwon was doing this like celebrity game for some like content they were doing, and they had Canyon play on a just not his account for this like celebrity game that they did, and then like basically they're like, oh, this guy's account sharing. It's like, man,
He'll
like
be fine, whatever.
unless you're like
Next.
unless you're account sharing to like Smurf or to Boost, like I don't fucking care, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Our last thing that we have, it's not League of Legends related, but it's kind of funny. So for people who know Dota, I wouldn't even call it a competitor to League because League is definitely like by far and
It's still
away
a competitor. I think the international is happening right now at the same time.
Yeah,
So
but
they're competing with each other.
basically we kind of saw how like NA canceled the finals in New Jersey about like a month before they actually happened out of like cause for concern because of COVID. Well, the international, they canceled their live event 5 days before the event.
Not the event though. They canceled the live viewership.
Well, that's
live audio.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, but when I say event, I mean like the event
Yeah.
where you go to the whatever stadium and watch the games.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify. So the tournament's still happening, but a bunch of people flew out there from. Well, in one of the tweets, the guy's like, "Hey, I just got here 5 hours ago from Brazil, man." The guy flew from Brazil, and well, you can't go and see the games anymore. Like that is so shit. Could you imagine if Riot did that? Like how mad people would be? I'm sure that the feeling is just the same when it comes to Valve canceling the live audience like that. That is so bad.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people could say like, well, it's COVID. They didn't know that they would have to cancel it. And it's like, well, look at Worlds happening right now. They knew better a month ago to actually like cancel live viewing. And they even went to a whole nother region because they realized. So like, you can't tell me that there's no foresight to be able to say like, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Maybe we should just have no viewers and just go back to Iceland. Valve could have done the same thing and they didn't. And they screwed over a bunch of fans, I'm sure, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's funny because like whenever Worlds would roll around, like anyways, like people would always be like, man, like League is always so late to release like where it's happening, when are tickets available, the exact dates, because, you know, people want to plan out their trips and whatnot. And it feels like, you know, kind of this situation sort of gives me a greater appreciation that one, Riot does have the foresight to like work through all the logistics beforehand. Like obviously special case scenario here, like we're working in COVID, but like these are kinds of things that get planned like months and months and months in advance, like logistically, where it's happening, when it's happening, how it's happening, and whatever. And Riot has always done a pretty spot on job with putting on international events and big competitions, whether it's like All Stars, even just like the LCS and the LEC and the LPL and the LCK. Like, it's all really, really great. And thank God that we didn't have some shit like that happen.
Yeah, and if we're gonna give shit to Riot about their bad balance and stuff like that, it's good to give them props where they do things really well, and they made the right decision by saying, look, this is going to be a nightmare to try to do live viewership and try to do it in China where we still don't know what's going on with the
Let's
variants
not
and all that
pretend
stuff.
these things are equal. Their balance sucks.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, like, if you're going to give if you're not going to give if you're going to give shade when they do something bad, you need to give credit when they do something good. And so hats off to Riot for doing the right thing here and not screwing over a bunch of fans that wanted to go to the event by canceling 4 or 5 days or whatever it is before. That just sucks.
Yeah,
Should have given that Beansoup, actually.
this is true.
That's one other thing though that we did not add last night in our preparations. J&T went AFK.
Oh.
There's a new head of global esports, global League of Legends esports for Riot.
Yes.
Her name is Naz Alitaha. I might be saying that name wrong. I'm sorry. If you guys have listened to the whole episode, you know that I've definitely struggled with the pronunciation of names. But anyways, there's a new global head of LOL esports. So cool. I don't know anything about her though. So
yeah,
I say cool.
She put out like a tweet longer saying like, "Oh, hello, this is me." I like skimmed through it while I was walking the dog. I honestly don't remember a single thing that I read from it, but hopefully this person does a good job.
Yeah.
I wish them
well,
the best.
And also the LCS is supposed to have a new commissioner that they said that they were going to look for one a while ago, and I believe that process is still happening. That makes me a little bit nervous.
Well, the LCS starts in like 3 months, so
they were supposed to find a commissioner a while ago, and they still maybe they found one, they just haven't announced. I don't know, but that's besides the point. This episode's gone pretty long.
Yep,
Let's close it out,
ramblers.
JNT. Yeah, any ramblers right here, rambling. Okay, guys. So we did our best to bang out an episode in between play-ins and groups. Groups start what, like 2 days or something?
Monday morning, so yeah.
Yeah, so not a lot of time. Sorry for those that felt like they had to rush through the episode. We appreciate you though. And our next episode is supposed to be when, J&T? I can find it. The 13th. So in like 4 days, we're gonna do another one after the first part of groups.
Yeah, just a quick
that's the plan for now. Things can change, guys. This is a wacky schedule for now. On the 13th, and I mean we'll tweet out when we're doing a live episode if so. Yeah, keep an eye on Twitter. You could follow myself at @bluej_GG. You can follow J&T at JNT250 on Twitter. We'll try to let you guys know there when we're going live and when an episode comes out. Yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying Worlds. I know we are. It's been fucking cool.
Hopefully.
J&T.
J&T what?
Anything you want to say before we close it out?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, like, this is where Worlds really starts. Like, let's be honest here. Like, it was, like, plans were fun. That's cool. Glad that they were kind of done in a nice and timely fashion, but, like, Worlds starts right now.
Yeah, sorry, Lamau asking in the live chat. We did cover that already. It's at the very start, but the episode will be uploaded soon. J&T's really pretty good at getting on top of that right away. So the episode should be up soon. Anyways, this has been episode 60 of the Clown Fiesta podcast. Hopefully see you guys on Wednesday the 13th, and if not, I'm sure we'll see you guys soon. So adios for now, and enjoy the group stage.